Chapter 1 Different Naruto. Chapter 2 Uchiha Seijutsu. The one-day course passed quickly with Naruto's attentive listening. Those classmates who used to often skip classes with Naruto and sleep together are now full of doubts. Naruto, do you want to work hard? After school in the afternoon, the students went home one after another accompanied by their parents. Naruto slowly walked out of the school alone. Later, he has to go to the wild to catch some fish and come back. Although there is food at home, most of those instant noodles have expired, and he really has no desire to eat them. Just as he was about to leave, a voice behind him suddenly stopped him. Naruto, wait a minute. Iruka-sensei. Naruto turned around, only to find that Iruka was looking at him with a warm expression. Iruka stepped forward, looked at Naruto and smiled. Naruto, you did a good job in class today. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then smiled. At this moment, Iruka's heart is very doubtful. Naruto seems to feel that he has changed a person, as if he has matured a lot at once, and he is more gratified about this. Naruto, since you studied so hard today, I'll reward you with ramen for dinner. Iruka chuckled, with a hint of love on his face. Okay, I'm worrying about dinner. Naruto agreed, and he didn't have to go out to the wild if Iruka invited him to dinner. Well, then let's go. At dusk, two figures, one tall and one short, drew a long shadow on the ground under the golden afterglow. After eating the ramen, Naruto returned home and started practicing again. Although he still had 5 years to practice, now is the time to lay the foundation. Only a solid foundation can make it easier to change in future cultivation. Powerful. The next day, Naruto was no longer late. He came to the school early. At this time, there were only a few people in the classroom. He silently opened the textbook and began to read the book. Some of the theoretical knowledge above was still useful. They are all basic things. As a traverser, he knows the importance of basics. At this time, a few tall boys entered the classroom. They first looked around the classroom and seemed to have expected that there were not many people in the classroom, so they came to the back row of the classroom carelessly, and when they passed Naruto, they were all slightly surprised. I didn't expect this guy who was late yesterday to come so early today. However, their target was not him, so they just glanced a little, and then locked their eyes on a petite figure in the back row of the classroom. The petite figure was reading a book very seriously at this time. Suddenly, the tall boys gathered around his desk. She was slightly startled, then raised her head, with a trace of confusion on her face, and asked softly, "What's the matter with you? Is it?" Her voice was light, her face was slightly shy, and she was introverted and a little uncomfortable with such a sudden thing. "Yo, is our eldest lady reading books here so early? Come, show me what book you're reading." One of the tall boys snatched the book without asking the girl's consent. "Also, give it back to me." Hinata's face was slightly anxious. She stood up and wanted to take back the book, but she didn't want to. One of the boys pushed her hard and pushed her backwards. Hinata let out a soft cry. The body suddenly fell to the ground. "Ah, you, what are you doing?" Naruto frowned slightly, and he stood up slowly, wanting to step forward to stop them from bullying Hinata. Unexpectedly, a icy coquettish voice suddenly came. "You guys, stop me." As soon as the voice was remembered, the bodies of the boys couldn't help but tremble, and their faces all showed fear. "Yes, Uchiha Seijutsu. She's the first." Before these boys could finish their words, they saw a shadow flashed by, and with a few soft bangs, everyone's bodies were knocked out by her. Naruto was stunned for a moment, staring at the girl who suddenly appeared in a daze, with a delicate melon-seed face, a pair of black eyes showing a cold breath, and long black hair hanging down to her waist. But the whole person exudes a breath of strangers. The boys who were beaten up didn't even dare to say a word, got up in embarrassment, and left in a hurry. After rescuing Hinata, the girl named Sasuke turned her head to look at Naruto here, and immediately came to the front row of the classroom and sat down. Naruto came back to his senses and was slightly curious, when did such a person appear in the class? Uchiha Seijutsu. After searching the previous memory in my mind, I realized that this girl named Uchiha Sasu is Itachi's younger sister. Not long ago, the Uchiha family was just exterminated, and she was the only descendant left in the entire family. Isn't this Sasuke in the original book? How did you become Zoe? Looking at her back sitting quietly in the front seat, Naruto couldn't help but stay for a while. Well, it hurts. Just when he was in a trance, Hinata, who was lying on the ground and was about to get up, suddenly exclaimed softly, and fell down again. Naruto quickly stepped forward to support her. What's the matter? Are you okay, Hinata? Suddenly being so approached by Naruto, Hinata suddenly became shy, and Yuhi couldn't help but look on his face. Just like in the original book, Hinata still had a crush on Naruto early on, so he was suddenly supported by Naruto at this time. His heart was beating wildly, and Yuhi's face was bleeding. No, it's fine, Hinata stammered. Her body was half held by Naruto, and Hinata, who had never had this kind of intimate contact, was almost dizzy now. Feeling the slight heat of Hinata's delicate body, Naruto couldn't help but wonder. He thought she was broken, but when he saw her face, he suddenly realized that he was too close. He took a quick step away, and Hinata was out of danger of fainting. At this time, Naruto noticed that Hinata's movements seemed to be somewhat inconvenient, and asked, Hinata, did your foot hurt? Before she could answer, Naruto squatted down and rolled up her trouser legs, revealing a delicate calf-like suet and white jade, but a Yuhi swelling on the knee ruined the overall beauty. Ah! Naruto's action immediately frightened Hinata. He fainted after a slight exclamation, and fell forward on top of him. Forehead. Naruto is speechless. It seems that he has forgotten the attribute that Hinata is too shy to approach easily. The few people in the classroom noticed the situation and hurried to inform Iruka. At this time, the students also came to the classroom one after another. In order not to make the matter worse, Naruto had to jump out of the window carrying Hinata. Running all the way down, Naruto brought Hinata to a piece of grass and put her down gently. Third chapter learned Shadow Clone. Looking at Hinata's cute little face, she was in a coma with a hint of Yuhi's dizziness on her face. Naruto smiled slightly, sat silently beside her, and looked up at the blue sky leisurely. The same blue sky Shirakumo, the same as the hometown in the previous life, but the current self can never go back. Thinking of his previous life, Naruto couldn't help but think of his not rich but very warm family, the little sister who made him love infinitely. I don't know how she will survive after that disaster. Without herself by her side, she must be having a hard time, right? Perhaps, she has also died like herself. Sighing quietly, Naruto's blue eyes inadvertently brought a trace of sadness, a trace of nostalgia. A gust of wind came quietly, and Naruto's eyes regained clarity, because a figure appeared behind him. Uzumaki Naruto, I'm here to bring back Miss Hinata. The visitor walked up to Hinata and said lightly. Naruto stood up and nodded slightly. The person who came was a young man in his 20s. Just from his white pupils, he knew that he was from the Hyuga family. He should have come to bring Hinata back. Well, Hinata suddenly fainted just now. Since you're here, I'm going to class too, Naruto said. Watching the Hyuga family leave with Hinata, he also walked towards the school. Returned to the classroom, Iruka was in class, and he didn't say anything about Naruto coming in halfway, just let Naruto return to his seat. In the morning, when Naruto passed the front row, their eyes could not help but stay on the cold and arrogant figure for a while, and the doubts in his eyes became heavier and heavier. Uchiha Seijutsu, Naruto thought silently in his heart. He looked around the teacher just now, but couldn't find the figure of the second male Sasuke in the original book. Has the plot changed? With a hint of doubt, Naruto started another day of lessons. It was still the same as yesterday. Naruto listened very carefully, which caused Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji and others who used to skip class with him to be very puzzled now. Why did Tien listen to the class so seriously? Naruto answered with a smile, because he wanted to become stronger and protect the people he wanted to protect. At noon, Hinata returned to school under the leadership of her family, but because of what happened in the morning, her face was still a little shy, and she didn't dare to look at Naruto. A peaceful day passed like this. After school in the afternoon, Naruto was walking home alone again. In the setting sun, his figure seemed to be dyed golden. He slowly passed by a small river beach, but saw a figure in front of him sitting quietly by the small river, with his hands on his cheeks, facing the river. Feeling something. Naruto's eyes fell on her, and a scene seemed to flash in his mind, but after a flash, he couldn't find any information. Isn't she the Uchiha Sasuke who was the first in her class? When Naruto was staring at each other's back, she seemed to glance back, and those black and bright eyes just met Naruto's blue eyes. Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then he grinned wide, revealing a sunny smile. Zuiyu snorted softly, turned her head away and ignored it. Such a smile is the most annoying to me. Scratching his head slightly, Naruto's hot face pressed against his cold buttocks, but he didn't care, shook his head slightly, and left here. When he gets home, he still has to practice. The current Naruto is no longer the original Naruto. Now he has a strict schedule for himself, and he is very strict with his practice. Whenever he has time, he will sit down and practice chakra, so that his chakra will change. Get more and more concise. A year later, Naruto has quietly completed all the courses that the ninja school needs to take. Including the basic three-body technique of ninjas, he has also used it very skillfully. Even Iruka constantly praised him for his hard work over the past year than any student he had ever met. In the ramen restaurant on Konoha Center Street, there are two figures, one tall and one short. Naruto in a white turtleneck shirt and Iruka in a chunin suit were both struggling against the ramen in the bowl in front of them. After a while, the ramen in Naruto's bowl had bottomed out, but Iruka before he finished eating, he let Uncle Ramen cook another bowl. Naruto, you've almost eaten up all my money in a year. Iruka said with a bitter face, seeing Naruto gobbling up. Hee, Iruka-sensei, you promised me that as long as I needed it, you would come and invite me to eat ramen at any time. You can't go back. Naruto smiled and continued to eat ramen. Looking at Naruto's cute appearance of constantly eating ramen, a look of relief flashed on Iruka's face. He saw Naruto's hard work over the past year, and he was very happy to see him continue to grow. Suddenly, Naruto seemed to have remembered something, and stopped eating ramen, raised his face, turned to look at Iruka, and asked, Iruka-sensei, do you have any powerful ninjutsu? I think next learn some ninjutsu. I have become very proficient in three-body art. Quote. Want to learn ninjutsu? This. Iruka was a little embarrassed. It wasn't that he didn't want to teach. Naruto just wanted to be his own younger brother. No matter what he asked for, he would agree. There is no ninjutsu you can do. Got it. Naruto, you have already learned the avatar technique, but it is not an entity. Once attacked, it will disappear. I will teach you a physical avatar technique now. Oh, that's Shadow Clone, right? The book says that only Jonin is qualified to learn this technique. Naruto said, thinking to himself, Shadow Clone has been coveted for a long time. If he can learn it now, you can practice with Shadow Clone yourself. Then let's start now. Naruto had a look of anticipation on his face, put down the ramen in his hand and walked straight out. Hey, wait, your noodles aren't finished yet. Iruka exclaimed. Don't eat, it's important to practice ninjutsu. Naruto turned his head and showed a sunny smile. Iruka was stunned for a moment. It's really hard work, Naruto, then I must try my best to teach you. Iruka's exclamation came from the grass on the mountain behind the school. Oh my god. Naruto, you learned Shadow Clone so easily. And it's so perfect. Iruka looked at the two identical Narutos who were almost indistinguishable between true and false, and was shocked. It turned out that Naruto's talents were so outstanding. In just 1 hour, he had already made Shadow Clone Master so accurate. Chapter 4 Play against Hinata. Learning Shadow Clone, Naruto began to practice with clones. Shadow clones are not like multiple shadow clones that can be divided into a lot at one time, but as long as 3 or 5 can be divided into practice, it is enough. After all, this kind of cultivation speed is 3 to 5 times that of the average person. Since Shadow Clone, Naruto's body is still 10-10 going to school, but he sleeps on the desk every day. Iruka doesn't blame him for this, because he already knows that Naruto doesn't need to listen to the class now, and can be in the classroom. Those who have been familiar with the knowledge of textbooks and mastered the 3-body art in 1 year, and even those who can learn advanced ninjutsu like Shadow Clone, are already qualified to graduate early from school. But now Naruto doesn't want to make himself look too dazzling. He is familiar with the 3-body technique and Shadow Clone. Only Iruka knows about it, and Naruto also told him that this matter must be kept secret, and he will give it to him in the future. A surprise for all. Of course, Iruka, who was close to him like a brother, didn't know the other meaning in Naruto's heart, so he naturally agreed. Today, it was the battle practice class, and Iruka brought everyone to the playground. Let everyone find a team to fight against. After a while, everyone found an opponent they wanted to challenge. Shikamaru met Choji. Kiba met Shino. Sakura meets Ino. Everyone started their own battle. Even Zuiyu was found by an arrogant boy. Naruto was still standing by, waiting for someone to come to him, but after waiting for a long time, no one came. Only then did I realize that everyone had already started to practice separately, but I was still idle. It seemed that because of my status as a monster, everyone was reluctant to practice with me. Thinking of this, Naruto shook his head helplessly. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of a figure in the crowd anxiously looking for something. It's Hinata. She didn't seem to find an opponent to practice either. Seeing that Hinata was bewildered, Naruto stepped forward. Hinata, haven't you found someone to practice against? Naruto said with a smile at her. I. Suddenly hearing Naruto's voice, Hinata was startled and turned around in a hurry, but met his blue eyes and the sunny smile on his face. Unconsciously panicking, thinking of his current predicament, he stuttered and was speechless. Hinata, haven't you found someone to practice with? I happen to have no one to practice with. Naruto said with a smile on his invitation, why don't we practice together? Us. Together. Suddenly receiving Naruto's invitation, Hinata's heart skipped a beat, wondering if she had heard it wrong. A Yuhi dizziness suddenly rose on her white neck, and she climbed up to the cute little face, and said at a loss, Naruto-kun, this. Seeing the cute appearance of Hinata in a panic, Naruto was amused, nodded and said, yeah. We don't have any opponents, isn't it just right? Okay, Naruto-kun. Hinata's heart suddenly flew. She felt that today should be her lucky day. The boy she always watched secretly. Now she's sending an invitation to myself, although it is only a pairing exercise, but being able to get so close to him is already a qualitative leap for me. Okay, then let's go over there. Naruto smiled slightly, and pointed to the open space in the corner. It was empty and could be used for practice. Hinata nodded lightly, her heart was beating wildly, and she followed Naruto to the open space. Hinata, I have always heard that your Hyuga's gentle fist is very powerful, but I really want to see it. How about you attack me with gentle fist later? Naruto stood 3 meters away from Hinata, looking at Hinata, who had been kneading the corners of his clothes with his head down, said. However, looking at her situation, it seemed that she had no intention of fighting at all, and Naruto couldn't help but be speechless. Hinata, are you listening? Naruto reminded. I'm sorry Naruto-kun. Hearing Naruto calling himself, Hinata suddenly recovered from the fantasy in his heart, raised her white and tender face full of Yuhi's dizziness, and apologized to him in a panic. I really didn't hear what Naruto-kun said just now, and I couldn't help but panic and anxious. After a few minutes, Hinata finally stopped being so flustered, calmed down, and began to take this rare battle seriously. Naruto has always been the person she secretly admired in her heart, especially in the past year, Naruto's efforts have been seen in her eyes. Although he is often scolded by people and alienated by other children, he always has a confident and sunny smile on his face. This smile is the smile that he has always yearned for. The introverted self actually hopes to be able to like Naruto. He raised his head and faced everyone with that kind of generous smile. Naruto-kun, I'm going. Hinata posed as the gentle fist of the Hyuga family. Although she is just getting started, as the eldest lady of the Hyuga family, Hinata has been trained by her father since she was a child. Physical skills are not bad. At this time, Hinata's face showed a firmness. Naruto worked so hard, he must not fall behind. It is my honor to be able to play against Naruto, and I must not miss this opportunity. Be sure to prove yourself to Naruto-kun. Seeing Hinata's actions, Naruto also began to be cautious. Gentle Fist is known as Konoha's strongest physique. Now he wants to prove his strength. He has always been practicing alone. Take this opportunity to test your abilities. Both of them are ready to go. Suddenly, Hinata stepped forward and slapped Naruto's chest with a palm. Although the speed of this palm was not fast, the movement was steady and standard. Naruto quickly stretched out an arm and covered Hinata's small hand. Unexpectedly, Hinata attacked again, and hit Naruto's abdomen with a palm. Naruto's body flashed to the left, almost dodging Hinata's small hand, and he stepped on the ground, and his body suddenly circled behind Hinata's back. He punched out and hit her in the back, but Hinata turned around as if she had eyes on her back, and met Naruto's fist with a palm. Looking at the white tender jade palm that Hinata hit directly, Naruto's fist withdrew slightly. With a bang, the fists and palms collided, and both of them were shocked, and their bodies retreated back together. It's amazing, Hinata. Naruto couldn't help but exclaim when he felt the power from Hinata's palm. Naruto-kun, your physical skills are also very good. After being praised by Naruto, Hinata's heart rose with joy, and he said happily. He is a ninja who specializes in taijutsu. Judging from Naruto's actions just now, his taijutsu is at least at the same level as himself. This has to surprise her. Although her own physical skills are not outstanding, she still has a huge advantage compared to ordinary ninjas. Naruto-kun has made a lot of progress this year. Chapter 5 Zoe's Challenge. The two practiced against each other for a while, until Naruto stopped when Hinata was panting from exhaustion. Naruto-kun, it's amazing, I have practiced with you for so long, and I haven't seen you sweat. Hinata supported her knees, and she gasped slightly from her small mouth, and a fine layer of perspiration could not help oozing out of her white face. Naruto smiled slightly. Hinata, you are also very good, I can't hit you. Come on, let's go there and rest. Naruto pointed to a big tree beside him. Yeah, Hinata nodded slightly and followed Naruto to sit under the big tree. Sitting down gently, Hinata felt as if she was in a dream. This day was destined to be unforgettable in her life. Sitting under the same tree as the boy she had always admired and enjoying the shade, this feeling almost made her die happily. After Naruto sat down, he looked at those who were still practicing in front of him. Suddenly, there was a scream from there, and then I saw a boy flying towards this side. To be precise, it was kicked by someone. The boy landed heavily on the ground with a thud, stirring up a cloud of dust. In an instant, the originally noisy environment immediately quieted down and became audible. The students who were practicing against each other stopped their movements and looked at the pretty figure standing proudly in the crowd. Uchiha Seijutsu. I don't know who shouted, and the surroundings suddenly became noisy. That's the genius of the Uchiha family. She is very powerful. I heard that she can master advanced ninjutsu. Yeah, she's the first in the grade. For a while, everyone was talking about it. Naruto's attention couldn't help but be attracted, only to see a girl with a cold face over there, standing there quietly, and the boy who was knocked flying before was ridden by her. Are you on this level? Uchiha Sasu looked at the boy lying on the ground coldly, with a look of disdain. I admit defeat. The boy was also a top student with excellent grades. He wanted to challenge the girl who was number 1 in the grade, but he didn't want to be defeated before she had gone through 3 rounds under her hands. At this time, only bowed his head to admit defeat. Wow, it's really amazing. I guess no one of us is her opponent here, right? Seeing the boy admit defeat, the surrounding people couldn't help but talk. HMPH, it's really boring. Zuo-yu shook her head in disappointment, turned and walked towards Naruto. Seeing Zuo-yu suddenly walking towards him, Naruto couldn't help but froze for a moment, then turned to look at Hinata suspiciously. Hinata is also puzzled. Uzumaki Naruto, can you fight against me? Sayu came to Naruto under everyone's attention, and said with a pair of bright black eyes staring at Naruto sitting under the tree. Whoa! Immediately, the surrounding students all boiled. Am I right? She actually invited Naruto to fight. That monster. Genius and monster, but that guy has always been the tail of a crane. He must be abused badly. That's not necessarily true. Uzumaki Naruto seems to have been listening very seriously this year. And Iruka was standing not far away, watching the scenes here, with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Naruto and Sasu, one is someone he recognizes, and the other is the first in the grade. Who is more powerful between the two? I am really looking forward to it too. Naruto stood up, smiled at her, thought for a moment, nodded and said, okay, I promise you. Hinata beside him suddenly gently pulled his sleeve. Naruto turned his head, looked at her suspiciously, but saw a hint of worry in Hinata's eyes. Naruto nodded at her, with a reassuring smile on his face, indicating that she should not worry. After Naruto agreed to Sayu, everyone consciously gave the two an open space for them to fight. The two of them are fighting, must Sayu win? Sakura whispered to Ino, Sayu has always been a role model for all girls. Choji said while eating snacks, Naruto seems to be very serious this year. I really want to see how good he is now. Naruto, he has really changed a lot recently. Shikamaru also nodded and said. In the field, the two stood face to face with each other. A group of boys could not help shouting around, Zuiyu, Zuiyu, Zuiyu. At this moment, Iruka came over, and the surrounding voices immediately quieted down. Just listen to him say, Konoha has always had a rule that when companions challenge each other, they must first forge a seal of friendship. Then, Iruka told the two of them the method of the seal of friendship, and said to them, now, before you fight, let's forge the seal of friendship. Seal of friendship. Both Naruto were slightly puzzled, but Naruto stretched out his hand after being stunned for a while, and looked at Zuo-yu with a smile on his face. Zuo-yu was a little reluctant. Looking at the small hand on the opposite side, she was obviously not used to it. She hesitated for a long time and did not extend her hand. Zhao-yu, Iruka reminded softly, and then Zuo-yu reached out and shook hands with Naruto. At the moment when the two hands were clasped, Naruto raised his head and grinned, revealing a big white fang towards her. Zuo-yu snorted, turned her head awkwardly, and didn't look at him. She hates this kind of laugh the most. Zuo-yu's little hand was a little cold, and the feeling of being cold to the heart made Naruto stunned for a while. On the contrary, Naruto's hand was very warm. This feeling reminded Zuo-yu of his brother's big hand, and his heart was slightly dazed. Next, she quickly put aside Naruto's hand. Seeing that the two had formed the seal of friendship, Iruka smiled and signaled that the two could start. Zuo-yu, let's go first. Naruto picked up a kunai in his hand. Facing the first genius of this grade, he couldn't be careless. It's Uchiha's blood. Humph. Sayu's expression seemed to have always been so indifferent, as if everyone owed her millions. Naruto couldn't help but have a little curiosity about her. Is this girl the same as Sasuke in the original book? Experience. Zuo-yu didn't hold anything in his hands, and rushed towards Naruto with his bare hands. It's so fast. Naruto only felt that in the blink of an eye, the shadow of Zuo-yu had already come to him, and when she raised a small pink fist, she slammed into his stomach, and the speed was extremely fast. As expected of the number 1 in the grade, his strength is different. Naruto stretched out his left hand and grabbed her fist. Zuo-yu was slightly startled, but Naruto didn't expect Naruto to catch his fist. The next moment, her left leg suddenly lifted, and then she quickly kicked towards Naruto's head. Naruto blocked her ankle with a right hand, but she was kicked out to the side with a strong force. After a somersault, Naruto stood up again, feeling the slightly numb right arm, and was secretly shocked. He didn't expect that Zuo-yu's legs were so powerful that he could actually kick himself out, although it was not ruled out that he was useless. For the sake of all efforts, but even so, it's already great. It seems that it is impossible not to take it seriously. There was a hint of caution in Naruto's blue eyes. Chapter 6 Naruto defeated. Zuo-yu is indeed a talented girl. After kicking Naruto with one foot, her body movements did not stop, and rushed towards him again, raising her jade arm and attacking Naruto's vital point. Naruto stretched out his hand to resist Zuo-yu's attack with great effort. Looking at her weak body, he didn't expect such a powerful force to erupt. It felt so painful when the little pink fist hit his arm. Bang bang bang. I saw the two people in the field coming and going, and the punches and kicks were dazzling, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that it was Naruto who was clearly at a disadvantage. Zuo-yu is amazing. Yeah, how can this crane tail be Zuo-yu's opponent? The classmates around were talking a lot, and Naruto was also at a disadvantage in the field. Standing by the side, Hinata folded his hands, stared at Naruto's figure, and prayed secretly in his heart, "Naruto-kun, you will definitely not lose." Boom. Suddenly, there was a muffled groan in the arena, and Naruto's body was kicked out by Zuo-yu and fell to the ground with a bang. It hurts. Naruto rubbed his chest. This girl is really merciless. He lay on the ground and raised his head to look at the frost-faced Zuo-yu, and smiled bitterly, "I admit defeat." Zuo-yu frowned slightly, as if she was very dissatisfied with what Naruto said. She looked at Naruto condescendingly with cold eyes, and spit out two words with disdain, "Trash." In an instant, Naruto's heart surged with anger. Is this girl too dragged? But then he calmed down the anger in his heart again, let go of his clenched fists, and then stood up slowly with a sunny smile on his face. Trash is just trash, but even trash has a bottom line. Having said that, Naruto suddenly exuded an aura. This was an extremely confident aura, which made Zuo-yu feel that he was the one who was defeated. This guy didn't have the depression that a loser should have. Gas. After speaking, Naruto walked away as if nothing had happened. At this time, Hinata hurriedly greeted him, silently following behind Naruto, and stretched out a small hand to help Naruto, but when she reached halfway, she stopped. She shrank back nervously. Finally, Naruto stopped when he came to the woods behind the school. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Hinata asked cautiously. Naruto suddenly turned around with a bright smile on his face. I'm fine, Hinata, don't worry, I didn't use all my strength just now. I thought that Naruto-kun's emotions would be very disappointed, but there was no trace of disappointment on Naruto's face in front of him. Naruto-kun, you didn't use all your strength. Hinata was surprised, but more joyful, because Naruto wasn't lost because he lost to Sayu. As long as Naruto is happy, he is satisfied. With Zuo-yu's strong character, if I defeat her in public, I'll be in trouble. In order not to get myself into trouble, I have to pretend to be defeated by her. Naruto exploded, blinking his eyes. He suddenly approached Hinata's pink face and whispered, "You can't tell me about this. This is a secret between us." The hot breath from Naruto's mouth all entered his ears, and Hinata only felt a tremor all over his body. His blood was surging, and there was a dizziness in his mind. Forehead. Forget about Hinata's shyness. Naruto scratched his head and looked at Hinata, who had collapsed to the ground with a tilt of his body, and his head swelled. Next, Naruto had to sit aside and wait for Hinata to wake up, secretly thinking about the battle with Sasu just now. Originally, I wanted to try my own strength, but I changed my mind temporarily. Now I don't want to attract attention. Although I have mastered the 3-body technique and shadow clone technique, I want to defeat Zuoyu. It's a difficult thing, but if you beat her now, then you will be greeted by a lot of surprised and curious eyes. Maybe in a few days, there will be news of the crane tail defeating the first person in the grade in the streets of Konoha village. At that time, it might even attract the attention of Konoha executives. That would be troublesome. After a while, Hinata finally woke up. Only then did he realize that the boy beside him had been silently guarding him, and looking at his back, Hinata couldn't help feeling a burst of sweetness in his heart. Naruto-kun. You're awake, Hinata. Naruto turned back and smiled slightly, then hurry up and go to school. Classes are starting. Class has already started. Hinata quickly sat up and went to class with Naruto. One day passed like this. After school, Naruto practiced kunai and shuriken techniques on the school's training ground for a while, and then started to walk back. As soon as he walked out of the door of the school, he found a sneaky figure behind him. With a little doubt in his heart, Naruto quietly came to the edge of an empty river. At this time, it was the moment when the sun was setting in the west, and a magnificent sunset in the west sky hung there, looking extremely beautiful. Suddenly, Naruto snorted softly. Come out, Zuoyu. You have been following from the school gate to this place just now. Do you have something to say? I didn't expect you to find out. Zuoyu snorted softly, walked out from under a small tree, walked slowly to Naruto, and stared at him with a pair of dark eyes full of fighting intent. Uzumaki Naruto. You didn't give your best this morning. Now I want you to fight me seriously. I really lost to you this morning. What, don't you want to humiliate me again? Naruto pouted, slightly startled, but she didn't expect that she could see that she didn't do her best. Zuoyu was very dissatisfied with this answer. Blue eyebrows wrinkled slightly, but she reached out and took out a kunai and pointed it at Naruto. This time, I am fighting you with the determination to kill you. So you must fight seriously. Otherwise you will die at my hands. I'm not interested in this battle at all. Is it really that important to win? Naruto was speechless and felt very innocent. He had already let her go during the day, but she still chased after him. I want to defeat all opponents. This reason is enough. Zuoyu stared at Naruto's eyes and said stubbornly. I said I'm not interested. Naruto pouted, turned and jumped away. However, Zuoyu was chasing after him, and Naruto had to speed up his steps. Chapter 7 The plot begins. Running all the way back to the house, Naruto got into the small but neat room and lay down on the white cot. Looking at Zuoyu who followed closely, Naruto couldn't help but say, Student Zuoyu, I'm home now, are you still entangled? I must fight with you. Zuoyu observed the room for a while, and was slightly surprised. She didn't expect this guy's room to be so neat. I said I'm not interested anymore. I'm lying on the bed now. If you must fight me, kill me. Naruto waved his hand, and then he actually closed his eyes. Go to her. Looking at this boy who didn't take herself seriously at all, Zuoyu bit her lower lip lightly, her eyes flickered, holding Kuwu for a long time, and finally slammed out the door bitterly. When Zuoyu left, Naruto quietly opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth showed a slight arc of good-looking. In the days that followed, Naruto continued his cultivation. With Shadow Clone, his cultivation speed was much faster than before. However, Naruto now runs around Konoha village with weights every morning. In order to strengthen his body, he must practice from an early age. It has been like this for 4 years, and finally the day when the plot begins. That is, during the graduation exam, Naruto got up early, still wearing a white turtleneck and short sleeves, but compared to 4 years ago, he grew a lot taller and got acquainted with his body. After 4 years of training, Naruto's own chakra and body have become much stronger than before. In the classroom, it was still so noisy, and everyone had different expressions on their faces, some worried, some excited, and some indifferent. In short, facing the graduation exam, everyone already had their own ideas. Today is graduation exam day. That's when you walk out of school. Iruka shouted from the edge of the podium, you will become a ninja to face many difficulties in the future. You may bleed and get hurt, but everyone keep in mind the dream in your heart. As a ninja, blaze your own path. So now, the graduation exam starts. Next to me is Mr. Mizuki, who is here to evaluate your graduation test today. Iruka said. A young and handsome ninja teacher beside him smiled politely at everyone. By the way, why hasn't Naruto come yet? When the first student stepped forward to demonstrate the avatar technique, Iruka frowned slightly and looked at the empty seat in the back row of the classroom, where Naruto usually took classes. The seat is empty now. Doesn't he know that today is the big day for the graduation exam? In the past 4 years, Naruto has made a lot of progress, so much that he doesn't even know how far Naruto has reached. Naturally, there is no need to worry about such a small graduation test. Iruka, who thought Naruto might be a little late because of something, waited for a long time, but he couldn't help but feel anxious. For the past 4 years, Naruto's performance has been maintained at the lower middle level, and his actions are also very worry-free. Iruka can't remember how many years ago in a situation like today. Naruto, don't drop the chain at a critical moment. Iruka's hope was completely dashed when the last student demonstrated the clone technique. Okay, today's test is over. Tomorrow is the graduation group. Everyone remember not to be late tomorrow. When the time came, Iruka had no choice but to announce the end of the test. People can't graduate successfully this year. Cleaning up, Iruka walked out of the school very depressed. At this moment, Naruto arrived late. Seeing Naruto slowly approaching, Iruka was furious and rushed to Naruto's side, scolding him. Naruto, you bastard, today is the graduation exam. Why are you here now? Iruka's caring scolding made Naruto's heart warm. He scratched his head embarrassedly and said, Sorry, Iruka-sensei, I overslept today. Tomorrow is the graduation group. You didn't even pass the graduation exam today, and you didn't get your forehead protection. How can you go to the group and become a genin tomorrow? Iruka rubbed with a headache at Naruto's answer. Forehead, even if I'm an invigilator, I can't protect your forehead without permission. Really, Naruto, why did you suddenly, hey? Seeing Iruka worrying about himself, Naruto smiled slightly. It's okay, Iruka-sensei, don't worry about me, I will definitely graduate successfully. Really, Naruto, I'll go and apply to Hokage-sama later, and I'll let you take the test again. I hope you can catch up with the group tomorrow. Iruka left in a hurry after saying that. 3 generations explain the situation. Watching Iruka leave, Naruto came to the playground under the tree and sat there quietly. Of course Naruto knew what day it was today, and he got up early, but he didn't come to the classroom when he got up, but continued his training, and didn't go to school until it was time to dismiss. In order not to affect the development of the original plot, Naruto had to come up with such a stupid way to make him fail the exam, waiting for Mizuki's foxtail to appear. In fact, his real purpose was not this, but the sealed book of Konoha. After 4 years of living, he finally knew how difficult it was to learn a ninjutsu. No wonder there are so many wandering ninjas in the ninja world risking their lives to steal the ninjutsu of Da Ninja Village. Thinking, Mizuki saw Naruto's lonely figure sitting under the tree, and suddenly walked towards him. Naruto, didn't you come for the exam today? Compared to Iruka, Mizuki appeared to be more gentle, with a slight smile on his face. It makes people feel like a good person at first glance. However, Naruto, who had long known his essence, cursed inwardly, but nodded his head with regret and said, Yeah, what a pity, I could have lived it. Yeah, Naruto, although your grades are usually not top students, you still have no problem graduating successfully. However, the graduation exam is only once, and if you want to come again, you have to wait until next year, unless. Mizuki said, and finally threw the bait at him. Unless what? Naruto's face was slightly happy, the expression on his face seemed to be grabbing a life-saving straw, and Mizuki's heart suddenly Ichiraku. Chapter 8 Old Fox. In the end, Mizuki asked Naruto to steal the Book of Seals, saying that as long as he learned the ninjutsu on the Book of Seals, he could become a genin without taking an exam. Naruto of course showed an ecstatic look, and then under the arrangement of Mizuki, they made an appointment to act at night. At night, the moon in the sky is very bright, emitting a bright light. Under the moonlight, a figure sneakily flashed through the streets of Konoha, all the way to a remote grove, where a quiet little house sat quietly. Seeing that there was no defense at all, Naruto didn't think much, just groping and dodging. After entering the room, Naruto couldn't help but be speechless when he saw the large sealed book lying on a table. If he couldn't see such an obvious bug, he would really be a transmigrator. Konoha's Book of Treasure Seals is actually placed in such a loosely defended place, and it is so clearly placed on the table in the room, isn't it obvious that he wants to steal it? However, Naruto also felt at ease. Except for the third generation, it is estimated that no one would do this. It seems that he deliberately wanted to borrow Mizuki to give himself water. Naruto, who has read the original book, of course knows that the Book of Seals will never be so easy to get his hands. This is just a trial for 3 generations. Naruto picked up the Book of Seals and quickly went to the place that he made an appointment with Mizuki. At his current speed, after arriving at that place, he still had time to write down the contents of the Book of Seals, so there was no need for another then find a secluded place to surreptitiously browse for yourself. Maybe now he has fallen into the surveillance of 3 generations. Naruto didn't have the strength to detect others' surveillance, so he still followed Mizuki's instructions in a calm manner, so as not to be suspected at that time. Came to a forest outside Konoha village. Naruto couldn't wait to open the Book of Seals. The Book of Seals originally had a complicated seal on it, and most people would never be able to open it, but he didn't need any action to unlock the seal at all. Being able to open and look at it made him even more sure that the 3 generations had already set up the game. Then you will count on yourself. Naruto pulled the scroll, and the first ninjutsu that caught his eye was the multiple shadow clone. This absolute bug ninjutsu, if you don't learn it yourself, you'll be sorry to cross. After silently writing down the hand seal method and chakra operation method of this ninjutsu, he slowly opened the back content, but when he saw the back content, he immediately felt a chill. Really? Conceived by that old fox of the 3rd generation. How lucky Naruto is now that he has followed the original script. I saw the back of the sealed book, and what was recorded was not any other ninjutsu at all, but some words that made people seem to feel very esoteric but actually have little content. Where are those legendary forbidden techniques? Not even an ordinary escape technique. Therefore, there is only one multiple shadow clone technique recorded in the entire sealed book. 3 generations of this old fox. Mind is really careful. He had long expected that Shuimu would do this, and he had long known that his ability was the most suitable for using the multiple shadow clone technique. Although I know that the 3rd generation is not malicious, but secretly helping myself to cheat, but this feeling of being completely arranged by others in the future is very unpleasant. Especially the transmigrator who is not bound by his own thoughts, it is even more unbearable. However, although Naruto felt very helpless at this feeling of being unable to control his destiny, but now his strength is not enough, so he can only do it according to other people's ideas. There's no harm in that either. No matter where you are, you still have to keep a low profile. At this time, in the Konoha Hokage office, Sandai was looking at the scene in the crystal ball with a pipe in his mouth. A group of ninjas surrounded him. Seeing Naruto stealing the Book of Seals, they all showed anger and shock. What do you think about this matter? Sandai took a breath and said with a serious look. Konoha elites around. Uzumaki Naruto, he used to look quite real. I didn't expect him to do such a thing. Yeah, the Book of Seals is Konoha's treasure, and this time, he must not be easily forgiven. Get him back. Listening to everyone's discussion, the expression on Sandai's face did not change. At this moment, a voice suddenly came. Master Sandai. I have something to say. Huh. The others were suddenly attracted by the loud voice, and turned their heads to look at the person who came. It was Iruka. Iruka came to Sandai, bowed slightly, and then said slowly, I know Naruto, he is not that kind of bad boy, he has always made people worry, and if he did something excessive this time, he must be there's a reason. And with his current level of knowledge, he doesn't know the significance of the Book of Seals at all, so I think someone must be instigating him. 3 generations of adults, please don't blame Naruto. He's just for a while it's just being misled. Hearing Iruka's words, the 3rd generation nodded indifferently, with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Of course he knew about this from the beginning to the end, and now calling everyone here is just a formality, or just being a witness for Naruto to learn Konoha's forbidden technique multiple shadow clone. Then let's keep watching. Iruka, you go and bring Naruto back. Yes. In the woods, Naruto flipped through the entire Book of Seals and found no other ninjutsu. In the end, he could only throw it aside, sat down slowly, and began to reminisce about the multiple shadow clone techniques and learned shadow. The art of cloning has long been known to keep away from shadow clone, and now it is easy to learn multiple shadow clones. Bang bang bang. Under Naruto's hand seal, more than 20 people suddenly appeared around him. The usual shadow clone can only be divided into 5 or 6 at most, and it will be very laborious after dividing 5 or 6. Now this multiple shadow clone saves effort. Many, more than 20 all at once, I don't feel at all. Disarming shadow clone, Naruto couldn't help but smile. In the Hokage office, after seeing Naruto learn the multiple shadow clone forbidden technique all at once, even the 3 generations can't help but change their complexion. This kid learns so easily. Uzumaki Naruto, is he another genius in Konoha? The ninjas were talking again. After all, this is absolutely impossible to do on their own. Chapter 9 Count Up. Actually, you are the QB, Nine-Tails Fox. The monster who killed the villagers. The monster everyone hates. Mizuki laughed wildly at Naruto, while Naruto lowered his head. Can't see any expressions. When Mizuki had said enough, his voice finally cooled down, and he said with murderous intent, now you are useless. The damn demon fox should go to hell. After speaking, Mizuki suddenly took out the huge hand behind him. The sword was hurled towards Naruto, and the huge shuriken swirled, making a gust of wind, as if it were the scythe of the god of death that harvested life. At this moment, a figure suddenly jumped out, stopped in front of Naruto, and blocked the fatal blow of the shuriken with his back. Kai. Blood spurted out. Iruka's body stood in front of Naruto, and he shouted loudly to Naruto, Naruto. Don't listen to him. You are not a monster. You are Uzumaki Naruto. You are my student. Iruka, you bastard dare to mess with me. Shueimyu was stunned for a moment when he saw this uninvited guest, and then his face darkened. Since you dare to stop me, then I will fulfill you. Let you die with this demon fox. Go. Swish swish. Another few kunai pierced the air and rushed towards Iruka and Naruto. This time, Iruka had no strength to dodge, so he had to use his body to block Naruto so that he would not be hurt. Seeing that Iruka was willing to give up his life for himself, Naruto couldn't help but feel moved. He is not alone in this world. Even if his soul does not belong to this world, the friendship between them is still strong. Thinking of this, Naruto suddenly raised his head, a pair of piercing blue eyes staring at the 3 deadly kunai. Swish. Suddenly, Naruto's figure flashed and quickly appeared in front of Iruka, and a handful of kuu suddenly flashed out in his hand. Naruto, you. Iruka turned around with difficulty, looking at Naruto's back with kunai in his hand, and couldn't help but be stunned for a while. I'm fine, Iruka-sensei. Thank you. Naruto turned his head with a bright smile on his face. Even monsters have feelings. Mizuki, that's the end of your demagogic words. Multiple shadow clone techniques. Naruto folded his hands together, slightly hand seal, and in the next instant, there were a few bangs, and more than 20 Naruto appeared. There. Ha ha ha, Uzumaki Naruto, do you think you can beat me with just this number of clones? Stop laughing. Mizumaki laughed, but didn't notice that one of Naruto's clones had quietly sneaked around behind him. Go. Under Naruto's order, several clones suddenly rushed towards him. Bang bang bang. However, as Chunin, Mizuki's strength should not be underestimated. Although Naruto's current strength is not weak, under Mizuki's quick attack, those clones were easily beaten into a cloud of smoke. Ha ha ha. Mizuki laughed proudly, his eyes full of disdain. Uzumaki Naruto, don't think that you can beat me by learning how many shadow clone. The guy who didn't even graduate from ninja school, don't try to beat me. Naruto, run away, I'll deal with this guy. At this time, Iruka stood in front of Naruto, bit Kiba and pulled out the huge shuriken inserted into his back, with a firm tone. I never forgive guys who take advantage of others. Saying that, Iruka threw the large shuriken that was just drawn from his body at him with a sharp swipe. Humph. Do you think you can beat me with your current strength? Iruka, you are too naive. Mizuki slammed the shuriken flying with the kuwui in his hand. Iruka-sensei, I'll deal with this guy. Suddenly, Naruto stopped in front of him and said firmly, I want to defeat him. Multiple shadow clone technique. Bang bang bang. After countless soft sounds, I saw that thousands of Naruto clones suddenly appeared in the woods. Hey, can you beat this amount? Naruto said with a grin. After using this, he immediately felt that the chakra in his body was empty. This ninjutsu consumes a lot of chakra, but in order to preserve the strength, it is also worth it. What? So many? How can you have so many chakras? Is it really a monster? Seeing the Naruto clones all around, Mizuki was instantly terrified. Taking advantage of Mizuki's distracted moment, the Naruto clone who had sneaked behind him suddenly appeared behind him silently and grabbed his neck. This is a bastard. Mizuki was suddenly attacked, and immediately panicked, trying to get rid of the Naruto clones behind him, but at this time, the numerous Naruto clones suddenly rushed up, and the densely packed piece seemed to be he was drowned in the sea of people like locusts. Mizuki had no room for resistance at all, and was beaten up by thousands of Naruto clones. Mizuki's terrifying and miserable howl came from the forest. What do you think about this matter? 3 generations of Hokage saw everything that happened in the forest. After reading it, he slowly asked the ninjas around him. Lord Sandai, although Naruto Uzumaki made a mistake, he was misled by Mizuki. I think it can be handled lightly. A relatively fair ninja said. Well, he can actually defeat Mizuki, his potential is limitless. A ninja next to him with Yuhi-colored pupils nodded in appreciation, and his sentence, even monsters have feelings, is very not bad. Hihi, Kurenai Yuhi is right, Naruto already has the conditions to become a ninja, I think he can graduate from school. Asuma on the side also agreed with Yuhi's words. Seeing that everyone was trying to protect Naruto, the 3rd generation smiled slightly, and the corners of his mouth showed a slight arc. Then let's add another Uzumaki Naruto to the graduation group tomorrow. Chapter 10 Graduation Group. The next day, the time for the graduation group finally came, and the students were all sitting in the classroom excitedly, looking forward to their future teacher Jonin. Uchiha Sasu sat there quietly, as silent as ever. She always lowered her head and looked contemplative, frowning slightly, making a large group of boys around her fall for it. If only I could be in a group with Zuiyu. A wretched boy came from the side, but it caused a lot of controversy. Go to hell. Are you worthy of Zuoyu? Quote. In the corner, a figure was also sitting there quietly, but her eyes were extremely uneasy, because at this time, her heart was full of that dazzling blonde sunshine boy. Naruto-kun, why haven't you come yet? You will definitely graduate. The silly Hinata was still naively fantasizing that Naruto could appear in this group. However, when Naruto did appear at the door of the classroom, and walked in with a smile on everyone's eyes, Hinata's face couldn't contain a burst of ecstasy. Huh, Naruto, why did you come to join the graduation group? Shikamaru asked in a strange way when he saw Naruto walk in slowly with a smile on his face. Hee, look here. Naruto smiled and pointed at the forehead guard on his forehead. I've graduated as a genin just like you. Congratulations to you, I would have no problem graduating with your grades. Shikamaru curled his lips, and then lay down on the table listlessly. Looking around, Naruto found that the classroom was already full of people. He wanted to sit next to Hinata, who was more familiar, but her side was already occupied. It turned out that there was no one sitting next to Zuoyu, and after Naruto hesitated a little, he had to go up and sit beside her. Feeling someone sitting beside her, Zuoyu slightly opened her dark eyes and glanced at him. At this moment, two more figures came to the door, one pink and one yellow, and two equally youthful and beautiful girls walked in. It's Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura. The two have not become rivals in love now, they are still a pair of good sisters. Huh, isn't that Naruto? Didn't he graduate? Sakura saw Naruto sitting next to Sasuke at a glance, and asked Ino beside him suspiciously. Yeah, he didn't come to take the exam at all yesterday. Ino nodded, then looked around, and saw that there was only a seat next to Sayu. She hesitated a little, then she pulled Sakura to the side of Sayu's seat. Zuoyu was still sitting there quietly with her eyes closed, as if nothing in the outside world had anything to do with her. Because Naruto has always been studying very seriously, he is not the tail of the crane in the class. Although he has the identity of a monster in the eyes of everyone, because his performance has always been very good, the two of Sakura Ino he didn't reject him either, but because of what Naruto said 4 years ago after he lost the battle with Sasuke, he had a tinge of affection. After waiting for a while, Iruka finally came to the classroom and started announcing the list of groups. Naruto still had a faint smile on his face, but he was a little nervous. Because of his arrival, I don't know if the plot has changed. If it changes too much now, the future will be completely unpredictable. When Iruka revealed the names of the groups, Kiba, Hinata, Shino are still together, and Ino Shikacho is still together. But the only slight difference was that he was in the same group as Sayu and Sakura. Fortunately, Sayu's identity is similar to Sasuke in the original plot, so it's still not much changed. Naruto thought to himself. Sakura felt pressure after hearing this. The genius girl in the first grade, descendant of the mysterious Uchiha clan, her teammate Uchiha Sayu was much stronger than herself, and she was like an ugly duckling in front of her. Also, Naruto Uzumaki, who is called a monster, although she always has a smile on her face, she always has a feeling that she cannot see through. The combination of these factors makes Sakura feel uneasy. It's a hassle to be together. Everyone got their own group information, of which there were joys and sorrows, and the most lonely one was Hinata. She always wanted to be in the same group as Naruto, so that she could get along with Tenten. But now it is. Hinata secretly looked at Naruto's back, suddenly feeling so far away. Next, everyone, Teacher Jonin, came to pick up their students and started the future arrangement. After more than an hour, the people in the classroom had long since left, and only the three of Naruto were left sitting there stupidly. In fact, Sakura had already grown impatient, but the two beside her were still sitting there so calmly, she had no choice but to sit there with her chin up and look at the scenery outside the window. In fact, Naruto couldn't wait any longer, but as a transmigrator, he couldn't do the idiotic behavior of Naruto in the original book. He had nothing to do anyway, so he might as well just sit there and think about the problem of cultivation. Hi, hello. At this moment, a relaxed tone broke the silence in the classroom. The three suddenly recovered from their various minds. Hello, teacher. Although Sakura was very dissatisfied with the late teacher, on the surface, he stood up and greeted very politely. Okay, you've been waiting hard, come with me to the rooftop now. Kakashi waved his hand and motioned the three to follow him. The three of them sat on the steps of the rooftop, while Kakashi leaned against the iron railing, looked at the three in front of him, and said slowly, "Okay, let's all introduce ourselves." "How do I introduce it?" "Teacher." Sakura stood up and said. "Well, it's just my name, and there are things I like, things I hate, and future dreams. Let me introduce you first. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I don't have anything I like, and I don't have anything I hate. The dream of the future. I won't tell you." Sakura, saw you. It turned out to be only one name. Sakura exclaimed in dissatisfaction. "Okay, it's up to you next. You come first," Kakashi said with a slight smile, pointing to Sakura. "Me, my name is Haruno Sakura. I like all good things, hate all bad things, and my dream is to be a powerful female ninja, and find a Prince Charming." Sakura said. After that, Kakashi was speechless with a look of infatuation on his face. Now, children, there are some things of love and love in their heads. Next, it was Zoe's turn. Zuo-yu paused for a while, then slowly said, "I don't have anything I like, and I don't have anything I hate, but I have a dream. No, it's more of an ambition than a dream, and that is to kill that man." As she said that, a murderous aura suddenly radiated from her body, making Sakura shiver. Could it be that she was given by that man? Sure enough, she still has revenge in her heart. Kakashi's brows furrowed indiscernibly, and he secretly cried out for trouble. Finally, it was Naruto's turn. He is still very satisfied with the speeches of the previous two people, which at least shows that the plot has not changed, and he also confirms a guess in his heart that Sasuke's current identity is exactly the same as Sasuke in the original book, but it is gender. Just changed. "It's your turn now, Naruto." Sakura couldn't help reminding when she saw Naruto in a daze. Naruto came back to his senses and smiled slightly. He was not as eager to express himself as children like Sakura and Sasuke, and he took the time to tell others his inner thoughts. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like what I like and hate what I hate. My dream is world peace." What a unique idea. As a result, it is the same as saying nothing. Looking at Naruto's smiling face, Kakashi couldn't help thinking to himself, the son of a fourth-generation teacher, his dreams are indeed grand. Cut. What world peace, it sounds so nice. Turned out to be as cunning as Kakashi-sensei, who only knew his name. Sakura pouted, thinking inwardly. Chapter 11 CQB, 9 Tails. Okay, let's go to the test next. Test. Hearing this, Sakura looked puzzled. Didn't he graduate? Why are there still tests? Kakashi saw what Sakura was thinking at a glance, and smiled. You don't think you don't have to take exams after graduating from school, do you? Although you have become genin, you still have to go through me if you can become my students. Your consent. If you fail the test I set, you must go back to the ninja school. What? Sakura paled in shock. He didn't expect that the consequences of failing to pass would be so serious. Without waiting for Sakura to continue, Kakashi waved his hand, looked at the sky, and said lazily, "It's already too late, you should come to the 23rd practice ground at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll be there. Waiting for you. Don't be late, and don't eat in the morning. Otherwise, you will be at your own risk." With a seal, Kakashi disappeared into the air with a bang. Shadow clone. Naruto also patted his butt and stood up, and said to both Suzuki and Sakura, "Then I'm leaving too, go back and prepare for tomorrow's test, bye." However, just as he was about to leave, a voice behind him suddenly stopped him. "Hey, wait, Naruto." "Huh, is there anything else?" Naruto looked at Sakura, who was walking slowly, and asked slightly puzzled. Sakura hesitated for a moment, then glanced at Sayu who had also stood up and was about to leave, and said to Naruto, "We will be a group from now on, I'll invite you two to a meal." Naruto was slightly taken aback when he heard the words, and thought to himself, it seemed that Sakura wanted to use this to cultivate the relationship between the members of the group. After all, it would be a group in the future, and we should strengthen our understanding of each other first. Okay, but will she agree? Naruto nodded simply, with a sunny smile on his face, looked at Zuo-yu again, and found that she had turned away and didn't look here. Sakura also saw Sayu's movements, and glanced at Naruto, before he stopped talking. Naruto frowned slightly, but then his brows stretched out again, and he walked towards Sayu calmly. Gently patted her shoulder, Zuyu turned her head back, gave him a cold look, and said coldly, "What's the matter with you? I want to invite you to a meal. The three of us will be teammates in the future. Can you see?" Naruto still faced her with a smile. After listening to his words, Zuyu originally wanted to agree to him, but when she saw his extremely bright smile, her expression became cold and she said lightly, "No, I have to go back to training." This smiling face, it's so annoying. She always smiles so innocently, she doesn't seem to know the troubles at all. It reminds her of her childhood, when she also had such a pure smile, but in that disaster for nothing. Naruto listened, the smile on his face froze slightly, and then nodded. "Okay, don't force it if you don't go, don't be too tired from training, you will have a test tomorrow." Watching Sakura leave, Naruto turned around and came in front of Sakura, exhaled, and said with a smile, "She seems to be unable to participate because of something, so it's just the two of us." "Oh, forget it, I'm going home too." Sakura was a little disappointed when Sakura saw Sayu left. There was no point in having only two people to eat, so she shook her head indifferently and said goodbye. Naruto leaves. "Ah, okay, this meal is cancelled, let's put it down." Naruto laughed at the fact that Sakura suddenly gave up this meal. It was just a pity that the free dinner was gone. If you think about it, let's go to a good old man like Iruka-sensei. Finding Iruka and asking him to treat him to a meal, Naruto started training. The multiple shadow clone technique was learned yesterday. The principle is similar to shadow clone, but it can create more clones. You can use more clones to train, so as to improve your strength more quickly. On the training ground at the back of the school, Naruto's body is practicing shuriken and kunai throwing. After years of training, although his shuriken can't be said to have reached the level of perfection, it is also he has been able to hit the bullseye every time, but Naruto still can't master the incomparably subtle kunai throwing technique that Sasuke learned from Itachi. But he will not be discouraged. After all, there are teachers who teach him, and he has to rely on his own exploration. It is very good to be able to reach the current level. After practicing kunai and shuriken for a while, Naruto felt that it was almost the same, so he wiped his sweat and planned to leave. But at this moment, his face suddenly changed, because at the same time, all his clones exhausted their strength and disappeared. In an instant, a sense of tiredness emerged in his mind, and Naruto only felt in front of him. As soon as it got dark, he staggered a few steps, and the next moment he lost consciousness. Before he lost consciousness, he faintly heard a soft whistle. Originally, the clones that Naruto had created wouldn't be so exhausting, but when he thought about Kakashi's test tomorrow, he used multiple shadow clone to create a few more clones. After shadow clone disappeared, the tiredness of training suddenly spread to his body. As a result, the sudden increase in fatigue overwhelmed him and he fainted. When Naruto regained consciousness, he found himself in a dark underground passage. There was a shallow stream of water flowing in the tunnel. Naruto stepped on the water and stood on the water, looking at this unfamiliar but familiar place. This is his own consciousness space. In front, a powerful chakra emerged, accompanied by the monstrous momentum, which almost felt suffocating on his body. This is Kyuubi, Nine Tails. This is the first time I've seen him since time travel. In the darkness in front of him, a pair of red pupils like lanterns came into view. Naruto narrowed his eyes and took a step back, cautious in his heart. This Kyuubi, Nine Tails, is really powerful enough, just looking at himself. At a glance, he felt like he was in an ice cellar. He, Naruto, you are finally here. With the appearance of those eyes, a huge iron prison also appeared, and Kyuubi, Nine Tails' hideous fox face was also displayed in Naruto's eyes. Hearing the words of Kyuubi, Nine Tails, Naruto took a step forward, looked directly into Kyuubi, Nine Tails' eyes, and said, "Kyuubi, Nine Tails, you are the one who pulled me here. Come. Oh, you little bastard actually know me. Naruto's words made Kyuubi, Ninetales' eyes widen, and a look of doubt appeared in his eyes. Interesting. You brought it here. It's been 12 years, and it's time for me to talk to you. Chapter 12, What do you want to say to me? Naruto smiled slightly. The huge Kyuubi, Ninetales, in front of him and the powerful aura seemed to be non-existent, and the smile was still so relaxed and natural. Seeing Naruto so calm, Kyuubi, Ninetales, suddenly smiled. I didn't expect you to be not afraid of me at all. Who are you? Hehe, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, don't you know this? Naruto said lightly. Humph, you're not that kid at all. If you want to fool me, you have to see who I am. I'm Kyuubi, Ninetales, who exists in your consciousness space, and you, an outsider consciousness, actually pretends to be ambiguous. That's it. Kyuubi, Ninetales, snorted suddenly, and his voice turned cold. These words came out. Naruto was subconsciously startled, and he secretly thought in his heart, Kyuubi, Ninetales, he didn't expect his identity to be revealed by him. It's no wonder that he exists in the space of his own consciousness. What he does, and even what he thinks in his heart, he is very clear. Thinking of this, Naruto's face changed. What do you know? Naruto stared at Kyuubi, Ninetales' eyes as big as a copper bell, and now he doesn't care about Kyuubi, Ninetales' aura. His heart is full of worrying. Your identity as a traveler will not have been discovered by it, right? Hehe, I don't know anything, but looking at you being so nervous, it seems that you must have a ghost in your heart. Kyuubi, Ninetales grinned, and then his tone became gloomy. 5 years ago, I was about to completely darken that kid's consciousness, but I didn't expect you to suddenly enter this kid's body, take away the kid's kind consciousness, and become the master of this body. As far as I know, this kind of ninjutsu that steals people's bodies is only known to a few people. Who are you? Kyuubi, Ninetales, hated Naruto's current soul to the core. Originally, his plan had been successful, and the day of breaking the seal was coming. Unexpectedly, this guy suddenly entered the body and ruined his good deeds. Although Naruto was still immersed in worry and shock, Kyuubi, Ninetales' words made him calm down again. Judging from the meaning of his words, Kyuubi, Ninetales should not know what he was thinking, otherwise he should have been thinking he already knew that he was a transmigrator and came from the earth. Thinking of this, Naruto's face reappeared with a smile. You bastard, what are you laughing at? Broke my big business, I'm going to solve you here. Seeing his smile, Kyuubi, Ninetales roared furiously, and a surge of chakra formed. The colored chakra flow instantly overflowed the huge iron prison and rolled towards Naruto. Naruto stood on the spot and jumped upwards, trying to avoid the chakra flow, but he didn't want that chakra to be faster than Naruto, and suddenly wrapped around one of his feet. Gently with a tug, Naruto fell to the ground again, staggered, and stood up again. After a while, that chakra surrounded Naruto's body and reflected Yuhi. Take my time to feel my hatred. Kyuubi, Ninetales smiled gloomily as he looked at Naruto surrounded by his chakra. Naruto lowered his head, feeling this powerful force, and smacking his lips contentedly. Yes, this force is powerful enough. But, do you think your hatred can affect me? What? My consciousness can't sneak into your consciousness. What's going on? Are you not using my power? At this time, the outside world. Hinata originally hid behind the big tree and secretly watched the figure of her sweetheart training, and felt a burst of joy in her heart. Although she couldn't be in the same group as Naruto, as long as she could look at him from such a distance, even if she could only look at him like this, she was already satisfied. However, something bad happened suddenly, and the good Naruto fainted. Hinata didn't care about anything. She hurriedly walked past with a soft whistle, and came to the fainted Naruto, panicking in her heart. Naruto-kun, what's wrong with you? Wake up. Hinata looked anxious and was about to cry, but seeing Naruto's breathing steady and sound asleep, she calmed down again. It seemed that Naruto-kun just passed out from exhaustion. Helpless, she couldn't go back like this, let alone carry him home. In that case, her father would definitely blame herself, and even beat and scold her. After thinking about it, Hinata was still struggling to carry Naruto on his back, resisting the shyness of being in close contact with him, and placed him on a soft grass, and then sat down, silently beside him, waiting for him wake up. Suddenly, Naruto's body revealed an evil and powerful chakra breath, and yuhi-colored chakra gradually surrounded his entire body. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise, shocked. Naruto-kun, what happened? What the hell is going on with this terrifyingly powerful chakra? But after a while, the yuhi-colored chakra that was very uncomfortable disappeared again, and Naruto slowly opened his eyes. Ah, Naruto-kun, you finally woke up. That's great. Hinata didn't care about being excited. She hugged Naruto's neck with a coquettish cry, her tone full of surprise. After Naruto woke up, he felt the fragrance of the girl around him. He couldn't help laughing bitterly, raised his hand and patted Hinata's soft back, and said, "Hinata, I'm about to be strangled to death by you." "Yeah, I'm sorry Naruto-kun," Hinata exclaimed. Her body hurriedly shrank back, but her face was covered with yuhi tide. She didn't expect to hug Naruto just now. This is really embarrassing. But the strange thing is that although Hinata was so embarrassed that she wanted to get into the ground, she did not faint directly. It may be that the two have been together for a long time, and she has already adapted to the close relationship with Naruto. But when he thought of the evil yuhi-colored chakra oozing out of Naruto-kun just now, Hinata's eyes couldn't help showing a worried look. "Naruto-kun," Hinata suddenly called out in a low voice. "Huh, what's wrong?" Naruto sat up and shook his head slightly. Just now, in his consciousness space, Cubit Ninetails forcibly injected chakra into his body, trying to use that chakra to contaminate the consciousness that he brought, but for some reason, the evil consciousness in Cubit Ninetails' chakra could not penetrate into his own consciousness. For this, Naruto was slightly relieved. It turned out that Cubit Ninetails' chakra Tails can't do anything about himself. But according to what it said, it is very likely that it has now been combined with the original dark consciousness in Naruto to deal with the soul of the transmigrator. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help scratching his head in distress. It seems that Cubit Ninetails will never borrow his power to himself in the future. Judging from this incident, Cubit Ninetails already knows his own hatred can no longer invade its willpower, but it is likely that it will think of other ways to deal with itself. In this way, his unknown dangers will increase again. Chapter 13 Kakashi's Test. As the sun went down, the sky was dyed with a magnificent layer of yuhi color. Naruto looked up, then looked at Hinata beside him, and said, "It's getting dark, I'll take you home." Hinata answered in a low voice, a trace of reluctance in her heart. Bringing Hinata to the gate of their house, Naruto stopped, and Hinata glanced back at him, hesitating to speak, thinking of the weird yuhi-colored chakra just now. "Naruto-kun, goodbye." In the end, Hinata trotted to him again, with a faint smile on her face, and said goodbye to him. This was the first time she had the courage to smile at Naruto. He had the courage to look into his blue eyes. And that ominous chakra, just treat it as your own secret rotten in your heart. Naruto-kun will never give up no matter what he becomes. "Well, then I'm leaving too." Naruto smiled, turned around and waved his hand and left slowly. It wasn't until Naruto's figure disappeared at the end of the street that Hinata recovered his silly gaze and walked into the house. At this moment, in a corner of Hyuga's house, a pair of white pupils were quietly watching here. When Hinata walked into the house, he quietly disappeared there. Back at home, Naruto was already physically and mentally exhausted, and lay on the bed and fell asleep directly. The next day, when the sun was shining for 3 poles, Naruto got up in a daze and took a shower. After washing up, he suddenly realized that today is the day of the test, and when he looked at the time, it turned out to be past 9 o'clock. But fortunately, according to Kakashi's habit of being late, he won't go until half a day late. Thinking of this, Naruto unhurriedly went to the street to buy breakfast, and while eating, he slowly walked towards the number 23 practice ground. On the 23rd training ground, Sayu and Sakura were sitting on the grass in depression, waiting for Kakashi's arrival. Seeing Naruto approaching slowly, Sakura's eyes lit up, and he rushed over with a stride, and started to yell at him, "Naruto, why are you late?" Kakashi-sensei said the time was 6 o'clock in the morning. It's almost 10 o'clock now that you're here. It's so outrageous. God knows that she is actually venting about the two of them waiting in vain for so long. Seeing Sakura's indignant look, Naruto smiled slightly. Although I'm late, Kakashi-sensei doesn't seem to be here either. Ah, but you're late. We've been waiting here for so long. Sakura rubbed her sore legs and little butt, all the dissatisfaction on Naruto's head. They were here just now restless, waiting for someone is the hardest, and now I'm exhausted to death. Sweat. Seeing that Sakura has completely regarded herself as a gas bottle, Naruto shut up and did not speak, and glanced at Zuiyu over there, and it happened that Zuiyu was also looking at herself, and there seemed to be dissatisfaction in her eyes. However, when he saw Naruto's smiling face, he snorted and turned his face away. At this moment, a lazy voice sounded in the field. "Hello everyone, I seem to be late." Seeing Kakashi's relaxed expression after being late for such a long time, Sakura suddenly went berserk, rushed forward and shouted in dissatisfaction, "Really Kakashi-sensei, you are so late." "Hee, I'm sorry, there was a little black cat blocking the road just now." "Everyone is black." "Okay, the next test is very important. If you don't pass, you all have to go back to the ninja school to retake it." Sakura's complaints were enough, and Kakashi began to talk about this test. The three of Naruto stood in front of him and listened to him carefully. Naruto vaguely remembered that this test seemed to test the teamwork spirit among the three of them, that is, the mutual trust between teammates. But Naruto looked at the indifferent Suzuki, and then at the innocent Sakura. It seems that they don't know what teamwork is now. Kakashi took out 2 bells from his trouser pocket, shook them in front of the three of them, and hung them on his waist, then said, "There are 2 bells here, you 3 will use all means to grab them from me." To these 2 bells. Of course, whoever fails to grab the bell will fail the test. Quote. "Okay, start now." As soon as Kakashi's voice fell, the 3 of them had already dodged into the nearby bushes. Well, the concealment is good. Kakashi felt the breath and position of the next 3 people carefully, and couldn't help but praise. "I wonder which of you will take the shot first." Kakashi stood there, still holding the Book of Intimacy Paradise in his hand, with a light-hearted look. Swish! A yellow figure suddenly flashed and dashed towards Kakashi. Kakashi glanced slightly, and when he saw Naruto attacking him from the front, he couldn't help shaking his head. Kakashi's eyes flashed, and he raised his foot at the rapidly approaching Naruto, kicking him in the abdomen with a bang. Naruto's body was kicked straight by this foot, and he flew backwards instantly. However, in the next instant, Kakashi's heart suddenly became alert, and he turned around suddenly, with a look of surprise in his eyes. I saw another Naruto suddenly attacked from behind him, punching Kakashi in the face. This punch, whether it is speed or precision, is already quite good in Kakashi's eyes. His heart was once again shocked. Naruto is really not easy. The one just now used Shadow Clone, and now it shows precise and agile physical skills. However, in the face of this aggressive punch, Kakashi just raised his arm lightly and held Naruto's fist. The other hand holding the book did not let go. Naruto was not surprised to see that his punch was blocked. He knew that his strength was far from Kakashi's, but he was not discouraged. This time, he could just use him to try his own strength. Naruto withdrew his arms, stepped down a little, bent his knees and jumped. A sharp knee slammed into Kakashi's chest. Kakashi's figure flickered slightly to the side, and he had avoided Naruto's attack. Naruto's figure fell forward, but he suddenly turned around with his body in the air, and a cold light appeared in his hand, and a sharp pain held it in his hand, and slashed hard at Kakashi's neck. At this time, Kakashi's body had just avoided the knee strike, and his body had not had time to react. Seeing Naruto's sudden slash in the air, he had no choice but to let go of intimacy heaven, and that hand met Naruto's suffering. No, the other empty hand grabbed the clothes on Naruto's chest, trying to grab him and throw him away. Chapter 14 Subdued. Kakashi's book fell off, but his hands had caught Naruto's arms and chest accurately. Shadow clone who was kicked out just now has turned into a cloud of white smoke, and now this one is definitely not a clone based on the feeling in the hand. In order to save a little face, Kakashi has used Jonin's strength unceremoniously. The next moment, Naruto's body was thrown out by him. In the air, Naruto suddenly shouted, "Do it! Zuo-yu!" Boom! After saying this, his body was heavily smashed onto a thick tree trunk, causing the whole tree to shake slightly. It hurts. Naruto rubbed the back that was almost knocked apart, and stood up swayingly, and at this time, Zuo-yu heard his own shout and rushed out, and his hands swished a few seals of forbearance. The technique is formed in an instant. Kaden Fire Style Great Fireball Jutsu. I saw a fireball with a diameter of 5 meters spit out from Sayu's cherry mouth. Fly towards Kakashi. Boom! An instant, Kakashi's figure was crushed by the rolling fiery fireball, and the grass on the spot was burnt to black. And the intimacy paradise where Kakashi fell to the ground has also become ashes. However, Kakashi was not hit by the fireball, but before the fireball hit his body, he used a double technique to escape. Amidst the billowing flames, the wooden stakes were looming, and Naruto's eyes instantly became vigilant. But Sasu didn't notice anything strange. Thinking that her fireball had hit Kakashi, she threw a smug look towards Naruto. "It's amazing. Sayu and Naruto are much better than me." At this time, Sakura, who was still hiding in the bushes and watched the changes, saw Naruto and Kakashi's hand-to-hand combat and Suzuki's powerful ninja surgery. However, Naruto was extremely vigilant at this time. Kakashi was not so easy to deal with. Sasu must have been very angry when a great fireball jutsu burned his favorite intimacy paradise just now. While thinking about it, Naruto looked at Zuiyu, but his expression changed immediately, and he hurriedly shouted, "Be careful of your feet, Zuiyu." As soon as Zuiyu heard Naruto's reminder, she found that her feet shook, and her hands suddenly appeared, grabbing her legs at once. Doden Earth-style decapitation in the heart. Kakashi's slightly angry voice came, only to hear a bang on the ground. Sayu's body was instantly dragged into the ground. Only one head remained exposed. Kakashi just got out of the ground at this moment, and glanced at the intimacy paradise that had turned into a pile of ashes. A trace of pity flashed in his eyes, and when his eyes turned to Sayu at his feet, he had become unkind. Lao Tzu's Intimacy Paradise, this is a collector's edition. It was actually burned. Flaw. When Kakashi looked at Sasu angrily, Naruto seized the opportunity in an instant. He closed his eyes slightly, felt the chakra in his body, changed its attributes, and formed a breeze around his body. This is the wind attribute change. I saw Naruto's clothes being gently blown by a gust of wind, and in the next instant, his figure rushed out, and the speed was twice as fast as before. Kakashi was in a trance, and suddenly felt the danger approaching. As soon as he turned around, Naruto's body was already close to him. What a great speed! Transformation of the wind attribute. Naruto has already learned it under the training of Ten Shadow Clone, but because he does not have the futon wind-style ninjutsu, he can only come up with such a way to transform his chakra. The wind attribute changes, and it escapes around the body to form a fresh wind, so as to reduce the resistance of the air to the body. However, this effect seems to be pretty good. No matter how fast my original speed is, it is at most the level of Little Lee, but with the blessing of this breeze, it has surpassed Little Lee, and the speed has almost reached the level of Little Lee opening a door. A cold light flashing in the palm of his hand suddenly appeared, and he stabbed Kakashi's neck fiercely. Hurry! Kakashi's waist was bent back with all his might, his hands resting on the ground, and the whole person became a bow. Narrowly avoided this fatal blow. Naruto's figure flew over his waist. Kunwu also naturally stabs the sky. However, just as he flew over Kakashi's waist, he stretched out his hand and pulled down the two bells on his waist. Naruto stood still, looked at Kakashi who turned around in front of him, and smiled. Kakashi-sensei, I got two bells. At this time, Kakashi was not surprised or embarrassed that the bell was taken away, but said indifferently, do you think you really got it? Naruto. As soon as the words fell, Naruto's heart froze for a while, and the next moment, he saw the two bells in his hand bang, and a cloud of white smoke exploded, and the white smoke instantly covered his sight. Naruto screamed badly, but it was too late at this time. A pair of arms in the white smoke accurately clasped his body, making him unable to move. After the white smoke dissipated, Naruto was subdued to the ground by Kakashi with a wry smile on his face. I was careless, Kakashi-sensei. I didn't expect you to play such a trick. Is it necessary to deal with our genin? Did the bell transform when he used the avatar technique just now? Naruto was unwilling. Kakashi himself turned into a bell, and he was just a shadow clone. Hehe, that's right, Naruto, you've all discovered this. It seems that I have to reevaluate your strength. Kakashi smiled. Seeing that Naruto and Suzuki were subdued by Kakashi, Sakura, who was hiding in the dark, couldn't stay any longer. She jumped out tremblingly. Now she is the only one left. The position was already in chaos. Seeing Sakura's frightened face, Kakashi shook his head helplessly. His hands were slightly sealed, a demonic illusion passed, and Sakura fell directly. Chapter 15 Pass Through. At the number 23 training ground, the three Naruto were tied to wooden stakes, and Kakashi was standing in front of them with a cold expression. You three, go back to ninja school, Kakashi said lightly. The three of them sat there with their heads down. Sakura was too useless, and fell down before a round. Sakura was frustrated because of her carelessness and the strength gap between Kakashi and Naruto. He lowered his head, thinking back to the battle with Kakashi this time, and summed up his experience from it. In fact, being able to subdue Naruto so quickly, Kakashi also has a fluke in his heart. With Naruto's physical skills, he can at least fight him for a few more rounds, but Kakashi finally used tactics and used transformation technique to transform himself. Become a bell, although this tactic seems simple, but it is difficult to guard against even if the opponent is a jonin. Not to mention Naruto is just a genin. When Sakura heard that she was going to go back to the ninja school immediately, her face changed obviously, and even Sayu on the side turned pale. Really lose face. Kakashi-sensei, give us another chance. Sakura raised her pitiful face and begged. Kakashi ignored him, but glanced at Naruto slightly, and said lightly, I didn't expect you to grab the bell this time. Although I had already used the strength of Jonin at that time, I have to say that your strength is still there. That's right. The moves that I used with Zuo-Yu just now are beyond Genin's level. Hearing Kakashi complimenting himself and Sasuke, Naruto just smiled slightly, without showing any proud look. After all, he lost in the end. Seeing Naruto's face, Kakashi secretly admired it. As expected, he was the teacher's son. He was so talented at such a young age. Seeing that Kakashi ignored her, Sakura felt aggrieved and almost cried, but in the end she held back her sobbing and looked at Kakashi stubbornly. This time Kakashi observed Sakura's expression, and his heart softened for the first time, and his tone softened. Okay, then I'll give you another chance. But it's noon now, I just brought you a lunch box, you sit down first. Let's finish eating here. Quote. Saying that, Kakashi reached out and put out 2 lunch boxes in front of Naruto and Suzuki, but didn't give them to Sakura. Seeing Kakashi's actions, Naruto frowned slightly. Isn't this way too hurtful? Glancing at Sakura beside her, seeing the smile that had just melted on her face condensed there again, Yuhi's eyes flashed. After handing over 2 lunch boxes, Kakashi added, since Sakura didn't even survive a single round of me in this test, she left her hungry for lunch. Okay, I'll leave for a while. Come back, if you see any of you feeding her, Get out of here immediately," Kakashi said in a stern tone afterward. Sakura lowered her head and was silent. This time, even Zuoyu couldn't help frowning. Kakashi's approach is too harsh for a girl, isn't it? Kakashi untied the ropes on Naruto and the two of them, and then slowly left. Looking at the back of him leaving, Naruto's mouth suddenly showed an imperceptible smile. No one knew it, but he knew it well. Yes, all Kakashi did was acting, but in his opinion, it was a bit real. At this time, Zuoyu had already picked up the lunchbox and ate it after a slight hesitation, while Naruto held the lunchbox and didn't move, because he had already heard a grunt from Sakura's belly beside him. Naruto's gaze made Sakura's face slightly yuhi. This stomach is really unsatisfactory. While secretly hating Kakashi, she is also embarrassed by the current situation. Been so wronged. What are you looking at? Go eat your meal. Seeing Naruto's gaze, Sakura immediately vented her anger on Naruto. Naruto originally planned to hand her his lunchbox, but when she yelled, the hand he was about to stretch out came back. But he immediately noticed Sakura's drooling look at his lunchbox. This girl is duplicitous. Give. While Sakura was swearing fiercely at the unscrupulous teacher and the guy who had food in front of him, Naruto's hands suddenly stretched out, and the smell of the food came to his nostrils. What are you doing? Sakura was stunned for a moment, and after smelling the smell of the food up close, she felt her stomach get hungrier and growled again. I'll give you something to eat. You're protesting when you see your hungry stomach. Naruto smiled. He wasn't very hungry anyway. He couldn't bear to let a girl starve, so he just gave her something to eat. Isn't that exactly the teamwork Kakashi demands? Yeah, but if Kakashi-sensei finds out, then... Looking at the smiling face in front of him, Sakura suddenly had another illusion. How could this boy be a monster in everyone's mouth, even in his parents' mouth? It's alright, you're done eating, I'll be responsible if you find out. Seeing Sakura worrying about himself, Naruto smiled inwardly. It seemed that she didn't hate him too much. Naruto. Sakura's heart was filled with emotion for a moment. He didn't expect Naruto to do this. This boy, who is called a monster by others, has completely changed his impression of him now. He is by no means a monster. Seeing Naruto's movements, Zuoyu suddenly stood up, reached out and handed Sakura his lunchbox, and said, I'll give you mine too. After speaking, she glanced at Naruto, her eyes flashing. Had a strange look. Suzuki. Sakura was truly moved. She was so abused by Kakashi and didn't cry, but now she burst into tears. At this moment, a gust of wind suddenly came from behind the three of them, and Kakashi's figure suddenly appeared behind them. Immediately afterwards, a gloomy voice sounded, You three. How dare you violate my rules? Hearing this voice, Sakura suddenly stopped crying. A look of fear flashed on her face, and Sayu couldn't help her eyelids twitching. The two looked up at Kakashi's gloomy face, and a heart instantly fell into the ice cellar. I didn't expect to be caught by him. If he broke his rules, he had to go back to the ninja school, right? Sakura sighed inwardly, and looked depressed again. You passed. The next moment, Kakashi's gloomy face suddenly turned into a smile, and the words he said immediately made both girls stunned there. Chapter 16 Referral. In the end, just like the original, the three passed this tricky test inexplicably. Seeing the sudden realization on the faces of Sasu and Sakura, Naruto's mouth showed a faint smile. Okay, the test is over, let's start the mission tomorrow. Seeing that the three of them had understood what they meant, Kakashi smiled and turned to leave. Before leaving, he gave Naruto a meaningful look. Naruto, thank you so much this time. After Kakashi left, Sakura turned to Naruto with a grateful look. I'll invite you to dinner later. Naruto smiled slightly. It's alright, we are a team, we can't do without any one person. Let's eat it, I have to practice later. Oh, if that's the case, let's do it next time you can't refuse again. Sakura replied softly, and suddenly raised her head and smiled at him again. Naruto's refusal made her feel a little lost, but she was also a little bit disappointed. A cute little beauty, this guy doesn't appreciate it at all. Well, I will definitely come next time. Naruto nodded and left in a hurry. Reason why he rejected Sakura's kindness was not because Naruto was really going to practice, but when Kakashi secretly sent a message to himself before he left, Naruto felt awe in his heart, so he was in a hurry to leave. Otherwise, who would let a free lunch slip away in vain? Watching Naruto leave, Sakura's heart had an indescribable meaning. In a deserted training ground on the other side of Konoha, Kakashi was standing there. Since the intimacy paradise was burned down, he now had nothing in his hands, so he had to stand with Kabuto with his hands and pretend to be cool. Behind him, Naruto's figure appeared quietly. Naruto, you are finally here. Kakashi turned around, waved his hand to stop Naruto who wanted to speak, and said to himself, I called you here to tell you something. Oh, what's the matter? Kakashi Nishii-sensei. Naruto smiled and said indifferently. Kakashi looked at him carefully, and suddenly said, I was surprised by the strength you showed in the test at noon just now. I don't think this is a student who just graduated from the ninja school. How did you learn the wind attribute of nature transformation? Quote. Hearing Kakashi's words, Naruto was stunned for a moment, but he already had a countermeasure. Kakashi is really not an ordinary person, he can see his ability at a glance, but he didn't want to hide it, so he said, nature transformation of the wind attribute. This is what I figured out based on some materials on the Konoha library and my own research, but I didn't know that it was the nature transformation of the wind attribute. Quote. When Naruto spoke, he looked at Kakashi with sincerity, and Kakashi couldn't help but believe what he said. Of course, he will not say that he is a transmigrator, and he has long known the fact that the wind attribute changes from the comics. However, Naruto is still very satisfied with his performance. Kakashi was shocked. This is definitely beyond the scope of genius. Naruto, he can achieve this level with only some materials in the library and his own exploration. This is probably impossible for ordinary Jonin to do. I think I also researched for a long time before I created Chidori. This guy, as expected of the teacher's son, has such a high understanding of ninjutsu. Naruto didn't know that he had become a peerless genius in Kakashi's eyes, but judging from the look on his face, he should have been successfully fooled by himself. Thinking of this, his heart was slightly relieved, and his strength has not yet formed. Although Kakashi is definitely not the kind of person who would hurt himself, since Naruto crossed over, there has been a kind of resistance in his heart, which maybe even he doesn't know, except for Iruka and Hinata, who are still trusted by him. Although he always faces others with a smile on his face, he is arrogant in his heart, so he doesn't want others to know a lot about him, including Kakashi's questioning. Naturally, he will not know everything, including I told him everything about how I cultivated, but I just said it lightly, and made up some lies in it. Naruto, I didn't expect you to have such a high talent. Kakashi did not hesitate to appreciate his own praise. Although there are many people in Genin who can change the master attribute, very few can study it alone, and Naruto is in Konoha. In this peaceful environment, it is a surprise to be able to achieve such a result. I see that you don't have wind-type ninjutsu yet, so let me introduce you to Jonin, a master from Konoha who has a wind-type change. Hearing Kakashi's words, Naruto was slightly overjoyed and said, Kakashi is still good to himself, since he can still help with referrals, he is secretly grateful. Okay, then thank you, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smiled slightly. Well, this is what I should do. Kakashi also smiled back, thinking, teacher, I will definitely train your son well and become a great ninja like you. Saying goodbye to Kakashi, Naruto returned home. It was almost evening. After thinking about it, he hadn't eaten yet, so he quickly went to the street to find a restaurant to fill his stomach, and then went to practice. Since the last time he felt the power of Kyuubi, Nine Tails, he always had an inexplicable feeling in his heart. This feeling was wonderful, that chakra, which was originally full of Kyuubi, Nine-Tails, hatred, was in his body. During the flow, although he felt strong negative emotions, he was not affected, and, apart from the hatred, he unexpectedly discovered that Kyuubi, Nine-Tails chakra is actually very pure. However, this also inspired Naruto's desire to become stronger. Kyuubi, Nine-Tails, in his body is so powerful that if he doesn't improve his strength quickly, he might really be defeated by it. It seems that we must hurry up to increase our strength. Naruto wandered on the street while thinking about it. Currently, the only one who can master quickly is Rasengan. He knows the process of this technique very well. The reason why he didn't practice before was because he wanted to lay a solid foundation first. After 5 years, the basics are almost done, and now it's time to learn ninjutsu. Thinking of this, Naruto secretly decided to let his avatar practice Rasengan after he went back. Chapter 17 Practice Rasengan. A few days later, the three of Naruto had already started doing quests, but since they had just become genin, they could only do some ordinary D-level quests now. For some simple tasks, although Naruto doesn't want to do it, it should be a recuperation after training. Now Naruto still divides 10 shadow clone to practice Rasengan, and the main body is fully rested. In order not to suddenly faint like last time, I can only do this now. Now my nerves are still a little fragile. 12-year-olds are not fully developed, and if they faint frequently from fatigue, they can cause permanent damage to the nerves. Of course Naruto didn't want to. Now, Naruto and Sakura Suzuki are cleaning up the garbage in the Konoha River. He is carrying a bamboo basket behind him and throws the garbage behind him little by little. Kakashi, on the other hand, was standing not far away, holding a new version of Intimacy Paradise that he bought from nowhere, looking at it with enthusiasm. At the end of the day, the task of picking up garbage still made the three of them exhausted. Even though Naruto's strength was much stronger than the two girls around him, he was still sweating profusely. In the end, most of the river was finally cleaned up, and the task of the three was over. Naruto raised his head and wiped his sweat, only to see that Sakura and Sayu were also covered in sweat. Sakura has even complained, "This task is really tiring. After spending a whole day with garbage, my body is so dirty, I have to go back and take a shower." When the sky was getting dark, Kakashi showed up and said that the mission was over, so the three of them went home. Naruto responded and saw that Sakura and Sayu had already left, so he sat down silently and closed his eyes to rest. Although he was very tired today, most of them were physically tired and had no mental impact. Here, the art of shadow clone is unlocked. As soon as it was unpacked, a large amount of information emerged in my mind, and a sense of exhaustion came, but this time it was not physical, but mental. In a dizzy state, Naruto finally reluctantly received the information, sitting directly on the grass by the river and quietly absorbing it. Not bad, in just one day, the training to break the water polo has been completed. Naruto murmured, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then the next step is to break the rubber ball. After recovering a little, Naruto stood up and went home. For several days, Naruto spent doing D-level tasks and practicing Rasengan. On this day, after the mission was over, Kakashi suddenly stopped Naruto. "What's the matter, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto stopped himself when he saw Kakashi had sent Sakura away and asked. The past few days, his Rasengan practice has reached the point where he can break the rubber ball, which is the second stage. Fortunately, there is some money for the daily D-level tasks, and the money used to buy the rubber balls for training is just right, otherwise, it is really impossible to continue to practice. The next stage is the third stage of cultivation, which is also the most critical and difficult stage. Although I had the help of Shadow Clone in the first two stages, it took almost 4 days, which shows how difficult it is for Rasengan to become a master. "Naruto, last time I saw you bought a lot of rubber balls, what do you use them for?" Kakashi asked suddenly. "Oh, that's just a tool for training. Is there anything else Kakashi-sensei has to do?" Naruto replied with a smile. "Cultivation. Well, but I haven't finished it yet. I'll tell you when it's finished. By the way, Kakashi-sensei, you won't just ask me about this, will you? Sooner or later, people will know about Rasengan. Kakashi saw it, so he might as well tell him frankly, but he still didn't like others to ask questions carefully, so Naruto directly left the topic and said. Seeing Naruto, Kakashi didn't seem to want to say more, so he suppressed his curiosity and turned to smile. The last time I told you that I wanted to introduce you to a wind-type Jonin, and now he happens to be free, do you want me to bring it with you? You go over. When Naruto heard this, he was slightly overjoyed. Okay, then thank you Kakashi-sensei. Well, no thanks, as your teacher, the stronger you become, the happier I am. Kakashi waved his hand. Next, Kakashi took Naruto to Konoha Center Street. Although it was almost dark at this time, Naruto was very hot. Although Konoha has a lot of ninjutsu, in his current status, there is no way to learn it. In front of a tavern on Konoha Center Street, Kakashi stopped, glanced at Naruto, and walked in again. Naruto nodded. It seemed that the man should have been drinking inside. Without hesitation, he followed suit, and as soon as he entered, his eyes began to search everywhere. There were not many people in the tavern, and soon he found a familiar figure sitting there drinking alone in a corner, and he really thought it was him. Yo, Asuma, why are you drinking here alone? Kakashi walked up slowly and greeted him. Asuma raised his head slightly, saw Kakashi, lowered his head again, and said lightly, It's Kakashi, why are you here too? Don't you like drinking? Hee, it's good to come and drink occasionally. I think you're sitting here drinking and drinking, is there something wrong? Kakashi sat down directly opposite him, the intimacy heaven in his hand still did not close, faintly asked. Asuma smiled bitterly and took another sip of wine. Instead of answering his words, he said, Tell me, what can I do for you? Kakashi was stunned for a moment, then put down the book in his hand, glanced at Naruto, and said, As expected, I can't hide it from you, this time I want to introduce you to my student, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto was already standing opposite Asuma at this time, looking at him with a worried look. He secretly wondered, when did Asuma become so decadent? But listening to the conversation between the two of them, Asuma doesn't seem to know anything about him at all. This guy Kakashi is really irresponsible. I thought he would directly help himself to say goodbye to Asuma, but he didn't expect that he would have to say it himself in the end. Asuma raised his head and glanced at Naruto, a flash of understanding flashed in his eyes, sat up slightly, lit a cigarette, took a breath, and said, Are you Uzumaki Naruto? Well, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. This time, Kakashi-sensei and I are here to ask you some questions about ninjutsu. Naruto smiled and replied directly. Chapter 18 Successful Practice. Ask for ninjutsu. Asuma was stunned for a moment, then there was a glint in his eyes. He pondered for a moment, and asked in doubt, Your teacher is the first Konoha technician, Hatake Kakashi, so he actually came to ask me for ninjutsu. Naruto smiled slightly. Although Kakashi-sensei is a grandmaster with a lot of ninjutsu, among the Konoha-style elite ninjas, Asuma-sensei is the only one you have. Wind attribute. Asuma was slightly surprised, so you are also of the wind attribute. Hearing Naruto's words, Asuma immediately became interested. Not many wind-type ninjas in Konoha, and those who can train to the level of grandmaster are even rarer. Asuma can be said to be one of the best. No wonder Kakashi would recommend him to find him. Asuma thought. Well, that's fine. It's getting late now. Come and find me at the number 34 practice ground tomorrow morning. Asuma nodded, agreeing to Naruto. He turned to Kakashi on the side and said, Kakashi, since you're here, come and have a few drinks with me here. Kakashi smiled. Okay, by the way, why are you drinking here alone today? After seeing Asuma's agreement, Kakashi felt relieved and began to get up with him. Hey, that's not the case, Kurenai Yuhi. Asuma sighed slightly. Haven't caught up yet, Kakashi said with a slight glance at him. Yeah, Konoha's famous iceberg rose. Hearing that the two of them started talking, Naruto didn't have any interest in listening, so he just said goodbye and left the small hotel. Walking on the street of Konoha, Naruto was thinking about cultivation. Rasengan has completed the second stage, and now he will prepare for the third stage, and tomorrow he has to find Asuma's resting style ninjutsu. Item Shu, he believes that his strength will definitely be able to improve a grade. The next day, Naruto and Kakashi took a leave of absence and went straight to Asuma instead of doing the quest. The 34th training ground, Naruto saw Asuma's figure from a distance, and next to him was the Inoshikacho trio waiting for Asuma to assign today's mission. Naruto greeted them from a distance. Huh, isn't that Naruto? Ino couldn't help but be surprised when he saw Naruto rushing towards him alone. Naruto, you're here so early. Asuma drank a cigarette, looked back at him and said, wait for a while, I'll set up the task, and I'll start later. Yeah, Wenyan Naruto nodded, leaning on a big tree trunk and closing his eyes. After a while, Asuma sent the three of Inoshikacho and walked towards Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Asuma-sensei, let's start now. Yeah, Asuma nodded, and the look on his face became serious. Let me see how far you have gotten. Okay, Naruto replied, since he wanted to learn ninjutsu, he couldn't hide his strength now. Closing his eyes slightly, Naruto concentrated his mind and gathered the chakra in the palm of his hand. Suddenly, a breeze rose up and slowly spread out to the surroundings. Asuma's face changed slightly. Have you completed the nature transformation of the wind attribute? This is clearly the effect of turning chakra into wind attribute. Unexpectedly, this Uzumaki Naruto has grown so much. But Asuma, being a Jonin, was only slightly surprised and then recovered his emotions, and continued, since you have completed the nature transformation of the wind attribute, then I don't have to worry about it, I just have a ninjutsu to teach. You look good. Saying that, Asuma came to an open area, and in front of it was a big tree as thick as one person. He saw that he had skillfully made a few seals with his hands, and he snorted softly, futon, wind style, wind cut. The next moment, the air in front of him suddenly gave birth to a transparent wave of ripples, and the invisible wave quickly flew towards the big tree trunk. Kai. With a soft sound, I saw that the sturdy trunk was cut into two sections in an instant. Naruto was overjoyed when he saw Wei Wei. This ninjutsu is sharp enough, I remember seeing an Anbu use it in the comics. At that time, Anbu seemed to use this ninjutsu to cut off the legs of a huge psychic beast. It is enough to see its lethality. Do you understand? Asuma released his hands and explained to Naruto how the ninjutsu works. Naruto listened for a while, closed his eyes slightly, and made a few seals like Asuma did. Futon, wind style, wind cut. With a soft drink, Naruto found that there was only a breeze passing by in front of him, and the breeze turned and disappeared. Asuma was watching Naruto's movements carefully, and found that Naruto didn't succeed once, just nodded and said, this ninjutsu requires a lot of chakra control skills, and even a normal Jonin can't do it so easily. Master, go back and practice hard. Well, then I'll go back, thank you teacher Asuma. Naruto said gratefully with a sunny smile on his face. Although he couldn't succeed, he already knew the principle of this technique, and he believed that he would be able to master it soon. On this day, Naruto divided 10 shadow clone, 5 used to practice the third stage of Rasengan, maintain. The other 5 are used to practice this futon, wind style, ninjutsu. At the end of the day, with 5 shadow clone efforts, Rasengan's hold has been able to do it, but the wind cut has not made any progress. That night, after taking back 10 shadow clones, Naruto decided to try Rasengan first after sitting on the bed at home to absorb all the experience. Extend both hands, palms facing each other. In the palms, a blue chakra suddenly formed, followed by the rapid rotation of the chakra, forming a rapidly rotating small whirlwind in the palms of both hands. The small whirlwind turned faster and faster, and the surrounding hayate was stirred up, making things in the room tinkle. Naruto's forehead was already sweating, and he adjusted his spirit to the best state, carefully controlling chakra, so as not to make it unstable. Finally, the rapid whirlwind between the two palms stabilized, and a small blue chakra ball whirled and turned. It looked extremely round on the outside, but it contained huge destructive power. Finally done. Naruto exhaled softly. Rasengan's training was simpler than he imagined, and he was able to perform it in less than a week. Under the spirit of relaxation, the chakra in Naruto's hands quickly disappeared. Sitting upright on the bed, Naruto carefully experienced the feeling of Rasengan's success just now, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Now that the third stage has been formed, there is only one last step left, one-handed instant Rasengan. This is a process of continuous practice. The original Naruto can only use Shadow Clone to assist. Now that he has crossed over, he must be stronger than the Naruto in the original work, otherwise he is the transmigrator. Isn't it a scumbag? Chapter 19 Ask. Naruto has spent the past few days practicing ninjutsu and doing tasks, and his days are quite fulfilling. After the group became a genin, he already has a source of income and can barely maintain his daily life, but because he has already with income, Konoha cancelled the monthly supply fee for him. In this way, his life will be more difficult. Fortunately, Naruto does not spend much, and the money is just enough. Nearly a month later, the three of Naruto have completed 7 D-level tasks, all of which are extremely simple and non-dangerous things. On this day, the three of them had just finished a weeding task and wanted to leave after saying goodbye to Kakashi. As soon as he turned around, a voice came over. Naruto, wait a minute. It was Sakura's voice. Strange, what did she stop herself doing? Naruto looked back at her and saw that she was approaching him with a mysterious face, and said casually, Naruto, please discuss something with you. What's the matter? It's so mysterious. Naruto asked suspiciously. That, I want to ask you, are you not bothered to do these D-level tasks these days? Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then replied, haha, I don't think so, it's quite interesting. It's really boring. I didn't expect Naruto to answer like this. Sakura begged for no fun. Seeing Sakura pouting Yuhirin's little mouth quietly, Naruto smiled slightly. What's wrong? That's all right. Oh right, Zuoyu seems to be looking for you. Sakura said while looking at Zuoyu who had not left. Zuoyu also looked over here at this time, not only looking at her but also walking towards Naruto. Naruto was slightly stunned, and Zuoyu had already come to him. I saw her asking, Naruto, I want to ask you, are you willing to live like this now? What do you mean? Naruto was even more puzzled, and said in a daze. I mean, as a ninja, even if you can't kill the enemy on the battlefield, you have to temper your mind in life and death missions. We are now 10-10 doing D-level missions, so we can't get effective improvement at all, so I hope you can propose to Kakashi for a more advanced task tomorrow as we unanimously propose to Kakashi. Sasu finished speaking in one breath, gasping slightly. She swears, this is definitely the first time she has said so much to Naruto. Not everyone is a member of the same team. If we don't reach an agreement, even if I ask Kakashi about it, he will not agree. Zuoyu has had enough of the irritating and boring tasks these days. Her ambition is not here. That's it. Well, I promise you. Naruto finally understood, and a smile appeared on his face. It turned out that these two were trying to persuade him to propose a high-level mission with them. No wonder he thought they were weird. Well, that's good. The corners of Zuoyu's mouth showed a slight arc, which looked so beautiful, Naruto couldn't help but stay for a while. Seeing Naruto's eyes, Zuoyu snorted again, turned around and left. Naruto smiled wryly, touched his nose, shook his head, and turned to leave. It turns out that Zuoyu is so pretty when she smiles. Back at home, Naruto sat on the bed again, crossed his knees and took back all the shadow clones. After absorbing the experience of the day, he let out a long breath. Funchi didn't make any progress for some reason, and not only that, but Rasengan couldn't do a one-handed instant cast anyway. What the hell is going on? Naruto was puzzled. It stands to reason that his control is already very good, but why has it been difficult to make progress in recent cultivation? Looks like it's time to find Kyuubi, Nine Tails. It must be Kyuubi, Nine Tails, again. At night, Naruto lay on the bed and slept soundly. In fact, his consciousness had sunk into his own consciousness space. Tails, location. Or the dark underground waterway, the heavy iron gate. Little devil, it's not bad. You were able to find it here by yourself. Kyuubi, Nine Tails, opened his frightening red eyes and said coldly. Hee, Kyuubi, Nine Tails, I'm here to discuss something. Naruto didn't care about Kyuubi, Nine Tails' cold voice without any emotion, but said with a smile. The tone was as if two very familiar people were chatting. It's just that Kyuubi, Nine Tails, doesn't have such a good temper, so he snorted when he heard the words. Little devil, if you want to ask me something about Shu, you can't think about it, I don't have time to accompany you, get out. Naruto was slightly taken aback when he heard the words. He thought he could have a good talk with Kyuubi, Nine Tails, to test whether the problem of his own cultivation was caused by Kyuubi, Nine Tails. I understand what I think. Aware of Naruto's surprise, Kyuubi, Nine Tails, finally recovered from the unhappiness and said, although I, Kyuubi, Nine Tails, are now sealed in this body, and you outsider I can't do anything about your soul, but at least we are the same host. Although I can't influence your heart, I can still know what you think in your heart. Kyuubi, Nine Tails, said. Naruto suddenly realized that he was unhappy. Anyone who has a consciousness in his body who is always watching him will feel extremely uncomfortable, let alone this fake Naruto. It's just that Kyuubi, Nine Tails, didn't finish his sentence. He just paused and then said, yes, although I can't affect your Shinshing now, I can still affect your chakra. Speaking, Kyuubi, Nine Tails, glanced at him slightly to see what his reaction was, but Naruto still had a bashful smile on his face, and after snorting heavily, he closed his eyes and stopped talking. After exiting the consciousness space, Naruto woke up again the next morning, and it was time to do the task. Through the situation last night, Naruto had a general understanding of his physical condition. When I read the comics in my previous life, I already knew that even if Naruto didn't have Kyuubi, Nine Tails, there were still many mysteries in his own body, and he might even be directly linked to the Six Paths Immortal. As for Kyuubi, Nine Tails, it was also created by Six Paths. Although it is now incompatible with Naruto's body, Naruto understands that there may be inextricable connections between the two. It's just that his current strength is not enough, and he can't dig out the magic of this body at all, and the power of Kyuubi, Nine Tails, is too tyrannical, and he can't control it at all. Only in this way, Naruto has another direction to work hard. Although Kyuubi, Nine Tails, interferes with his chakra, making it impossible to control it normally, as long as he can overcome the interference of Kyuubi, Nine Tails, he will chakra's manipulation reaches a situation where he ignores the influence of Kyuubi, Nine Tails, or gets rid of the influence of Kyuubi, Nine Tails. At that time, even if he does not rely on Kyuubi, Nine Tails, he can become a strong man on his own. Chapter 20 The Land of Waves Mission. The next day, Naruto and Kakashi turned around as usual, and went to the Hokage office to collect the task together. Sakura yesterday, Naruto had to take the initiative to do a high-level task as stated in the plot. When he calmly told Sandai that he hoped to get a C-level mission, Sandai did not agree. Sandai objected. Naruto shrugged, looked at Sakura next to Kakashi, and Suzuki, and signaled his helplessness to the two of them. I have already said it, but whether the third generation agrees or not, it doesn't matter to me. Zuiyu's eyes turned cold, she glared at him secretly, stepped forward slightly and came to Sandai, and said in a crisp voice, Sandai-sama Hokage, please agree to Naruto's request, our current strength is enough to challenge this difficulty. The mission is over, and I think that only by challenging stronger missions and stronger people can improve my strength, isn't it? 3 generations of adults. Seeing that Sayuki was also making a fool of himself, Kakashi gave Sandai a helpless look, and Sandai nodded slightly, looked at Naruto and Sasuke, and then looked at Sakura who was looking forward to it. His serious face finally loosened. A trace, I saw him take a puff of cigarette and then took a scroll and said, "Well, since you want to do advanced tasks so much, I happen to have one for you here. Come in." As the voice of the third generation fell, the door of Hokage's office was suddenly pushed open, and then a drunk old man came in from the door. He was carrying a bamboo basket on his back and raised his head with a bottle of wine in his hand. It was in the big can. After entering, he first said to Lord Hokage, and then turned his eyes to the three of Naruto. "This man is Dasna." Outside the gate of Konoha village, Naruto and his party had already set off on the road. They had already left Konoha for dozens of kilometers, but it still took a lot of time to think of the country of waves. On the way, there was Dasna, an ordinary person without chakra. Everyone's speed has also become very slow. At this speed, it will take at least 3 days to reach the country of waves. In fact, Naruto was really taken aback the moment Dasna appeared in Hokage's office. He didn't expect that he would encounter the mission of the Land of Waves so soon. He knew the danger of this mission the most, but danger is danger. The most important thing is how to deal with Bai. I watched a lot of Hokage fans before. To be honest, I once imagined that Bai was a girl and went to save her, but now I think I really come after coming here. I found that my own survival was also difficult to guarantee, not to mention these things that were completely beyond my ability at present. It seems that during this mission, I can only play stupid once. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but turn his head and glance at Zuoyu, only to see that she had an excited expression on her face. Looking at Sakura again, she was also looking around curiously. For them who have never been out of the village, the freshness of this first time out of the village is really too great. Kakashi is holding this intimacy paradise, and watching it with relish. The group entered a tree-lined road unhurriedly, and there was a forest in front of them. As long as they passed through the forest, they reached the seaside, and then took a boat to the country of waves. But at this moment, something destined to happen finally happened. Just as Naruto and his party passed a small puddle on the side of the road, 2 figures suddenly jumped out of it. Swish twice. As soon as everyone turned around, they saw that the 2 black eagle-like shadows suddenly shot several chains from their hands. One of them made Kakashi, who was stunned, in place, and then they pulled hard with both hands. With a thud, Kakashi's body was instantly minced into pieces in front of Naruto and the others. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura exclaimed, her legs softened by the sudden bloody scene, and she almost fell to her knees. Sayu was also shocked, but her mental quality was obviously much better than that of Sakura. She reacted in an instant, her figure moved rapidly, and she immediately stopped in front of the ghost brother who was about to attack Naruto. Kuwu swung his hand in a row, and after blocking the chain, he kicked one of them in the face, kicking the whole back several meters, and fell to the ground. Turning her head to look at Naruto, who was still standing still, a smug smile appeared on the corner of Zuoyu's mouth. "Coward, I'm too scared to move." Naruto has black lines all over his head, and sure enough, this Sasuke has the same character as Sasuke in the original book. I didn't move just now just to see Zuoyu's reaction, which was as expected. While Zuoyu was talking, the 2 ghost brothers realized that Zuoyu was not easy to mess with, and hurriedly turned the target and rushed to Dasna. Their mission this time was Dasna. As long as they could kill the old man, the mission would be even if it's done. Not good. Seeing that the figures of the 2 had come to the overwhelmed owner, Zuoyu, who was secretly complacent, was startled, but it was too late to stop. At this moment, a figure appeared with the wind, and stopped in front of Dasna almost in an instant. I saw that his arms were pinched, and he easily pinched the necks of the 2 ghost brothers. The 2 lost consciousness before they even had time to react. The 2 bodies fell limply into Kakashi's hands. For all of this, Naruto never made a move. It wasn't that he didn't want to make a move. He was confident that if he made his move, he would definitely do better than Zuoyu, but he knew that this was just a small episode, so he didn't. No effort wasted here. After solving the 2, The group continued on the road, but there was a scene where Kakashi questioned his owner about the reason, and everyone agreed to continue this rare task. "Hey, coward, why didn't you take action just now?" While walking on the road, while Naruto was thinking about how to release Rasengan with one hand, Zuoyu's proud and arrogant voice suddenly sounded beside his ear. Naruto couldn't help but raised his head and glanced at her slightly, seeing that she raised the corners of her mouth like a winning rooster, smiled helplessly. "You've already made a move, why should I do this? Why don't I let you take care of it? Show it off." After listening to Naruto's words, Zuoyu snorted dissatisfiedly. She thought that this guy would be unwilling, it was so boring. Without Sasuke's voice in his ears, Naruto continued to study the issue of Rasengan and how to successfully perform Kazuki ninjutsu. In fact, it all depends on Naruto's chakra control, and chakra's control does not only depend on the strength of mental power. Even people with ordinary mental power, such as Sakura, can control chakra to the extreme degree of precision, and Naruto's chakra control has always been a weak point. This is not because of his own lack of talent. In fact, his chakra control is better than Sakura's, but because of Kyuubi, Nine Tails. But Naruto's body is very talented, which can be seen from the deeds of his father Namikaze Minato, who created the mysterious space ninjutsu of Hiraishin. However, although Naruto knows that his body has countless treasures, he is unable to dig and use them one by one. If he wants to strengthen chakra's control, he can only strengthen his own spiritual power to resist Kyuubi, Nine Tails interferes with itself in this way. In the final analysis, although mental power is not the foundation of improving control, but for the current Naruto, this is already the best way.